Well, there we are. Another show. Mike, how you doing today?
Doing excellent. As usual, thank you for having me back on. This is always a lot of
Uh,
fun.
it is always a lot of fun. We are expecting Average Joe also. I know he had some mix-ups on some of the times and stuff earlier today, so hopefully we got that all straightened out. He'll be here at some point. That at least that's the plan. And I was pretty confident that he was pretty sure of it. So we'll see how it goes um, as he goes along. But either way, I mean, we've got one way or another, we've got a fantastic show planned this week. Um, the intent here is to get this kicked off with. Whoops, sorry about that. Kick the camera, and I hope I didn't move it too far. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I did. I moved it a little bit, didn't I? There we go. We have a great show this planned this week. We're going to be doing everything to do with disaster recovery plans. Where hopefully several of us will describe what our plans are. If we've ran into disasters before, exactly what we had to deal with. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what kind of disaster you have versus what kind of disaster I have and what kind of other disasters there are out there. Because you prepare for other ones differently. I know earlier tonight I had some bad weather coming. So miniature disaster was just turn on the charger, make sure the batteries are full, that type of thing. So kind of looking at stuff like that. So I got a great outline here of that. And then we'll talk about those things that kind of look good on paper but don't work in real life, and just kind of just go through the thing. I've got a pretty good agenda. I didn't get a chance to hand it out, Mike, for you to take a look at it, and I didn't go through it in great detail. I wrote it earlier this week, and then I haven't gotten back to it, so it'll kind of be new to both of us, and that'll be fair because if Average Joe shows up, it'll be new to him too. But it shouldn't be nothing surprising. For those of us that are in the solar industry, and I'm sure Mike will agree with this, the primary thing that's on your mind is what happens when, is kind of the big question you're always asking yourself. What happens when? So that's what we're going to be talking about this week. And I'm kind of going a little bit slow here. Got to give us a little bit of time to chat with some people, get started, give Average Joe a little bit of time to get online. If he's around and he decides to join us, that would be great. If not, no hard feelings. I know things happen, and we're all busy. So let me just see if I can. Let's just see what we've got going on this week. If I can get the chat box coming up on the window here, I can figure it out. Oh, there it is. It's over top of you, Mike. Hope you don't mind. People will be chatting on top of you there.
Oh, perfectly. I'm just pulling it up on my phone so I can look at it easy. So, all
Yeah, it
right.
seems to. I'm not sure if it. Sometimes it seems to be delayed that way. I always turn off all of the pay stuff and things like that because it seems like
Right.
everybody gets discombobulated and all out of whack and they're all talking about things at the wrong time and all of that. So let's just make sure everything's working. NSB, good to see you back. I'm gonna have to see if I can move over a little bit. That camera is still off. I bumped it pretty hard, didn't I? There we go. I think that's a little better. Okay. And so what's going on with you, Mike, this past week? I know you've been pumping videos out left and right. What happened?
So I've been taking your advice, and it's actually made a difference. I was adding about 130 subscribers a month on average, and I was just stuck in that. So your advice of, hey, just increase your frequency. So did that, and I think for the last 28 days, 300. So,
Oh, double.
which for me is huge. So I appreciate
Yeah.
all the good advice.
Well, advice is cheap. It's like opinions. Everybody's opinions and backsides. It's like everybody has
Yes,
one. It's just, but when it
yes,
works, that's the good news. So I'm glad it
yes.
helped. That it's I've been going at it quite a bit differently myself lately too. So I've slowed down a little bit. It seems like it goes in trends when you post a whole bunch and then you slow down for a little bit, and then the slowing down actually helps, and then when you speed back up, it helps again. So I don't know what. There's no rhyme or reason, but I think maybe it's just the ebbs and flows of it.
And then you also have the holidays coming up. I know that I'm prepping for that. So you've got, I mean, it's not really a holiday Prime Day, but I've got a lot of vendors reaching out to me saying, hey, can you do a video on this? You're probably in a similar boat. Then you have 4th of July. I'm sure Signature Solar is going to have sales for 4th of July. So, yeah, just trying to get ready for all that.
Yeah, and I saw earlier today, for those of you who are interested, they've got those, how do you say that? Ring wire?
Oh, Wirens. Oh,
The
so
wire and
I've got
batteries
a,
are back in stock, and I was one of the very first to get some earlier this morning. So I'll have a good video
this
on
is
those here in
awesome.
a few weeks. Yeah.
This is awesome. So I placed another, speaking of which, I placed another order for them today. So
Oh,
I've
you did
got
too.
an, yeah, yeah. So, okay. So you probably got a good deal on it, hopefully. And
Yes.
I've got another 2 racks of batteries coming. So I'm going to have 3 racks of
Nice.
wirings.
They seem to be,
And
I mean, I was impressed with the thing. Now, I was a little discouraged by the fact they did go up a little bit. The price went up a little bit, which
yeah,
was kind of discouraging. Um, I know when I started planning on the upgrade a month or so ago, they were a little bit less, but they're good batteries and they're still very
and
inexpensive. Although it
and
makes you wonder how that's going to put them over, because I've got another big battery deal coming, and that put them just over, the new my new battery big deal. So with big battery actually. So I've got something
okay.
happening that's going to be pretty significant with big battery here in the next couple of months for me, and that puts these budget batteries above their price per kilowatt. So that'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'm kind of surprised to see all these price hikes all of a sudden, because Watt Cycle went up right after I posted their video.
Right. Yeah,
How
I
do you
knew
say that?
Watt
Was it?
Cycle and HumSync were going to be going up, and I think a lot of them are starting to creep up a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, what
Uh,
did we expect? I mean, they had been dropping now for forever. I mean, they kept dropping and kept dropping and kept dropping. Although who knows now? Maybe if what happened overseas holds today, maybe they'll start dropping again.
yeah, it's kind of wait and see. I think we're getting used to these super low prices that I don't know, if they're going to be around forever or what.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely have to see. But um, disaster recovery,
Let's get into it.
yeah.
Joe's not here, so his loss is our gain. So I'm sure he's running behind somewhere. I'm sure I'll hear from him here in a little bit. If not, we'll catch him next time. No big deal.
Yep.
But
And
let's
if
start off with. Go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, and if he joins halfway through, Joe, if you get halfway, jump on because I don't think I've ever talked to you before, and I think it would be an absolute hoot.
Yeah, well, and Joe, we got to talk about your wife again too, because that was I'm telling you, Joe, I'm sorry to say it, but she may take your job away from you. We have to put an
I think
MRI.
she does a better job. You know, but to be completely honest, I love seeing the two of them in a video and kind of reviewing things, and I think that's very cool.
I think it's very cool too. It reminded me of when you see people that have just started, just all of the things that now, all this time later, you just take for granted and you don't think about it. You do a battery review and I do one, and I've actually started noticing it on even on his reviews. We just like list off this thing of specs and just assume people know what it all means. And I
Right.
remember now, back when you first started, you're like, well, what did he say? What does that mean? What does this mean? And it's
What's
a,
16S?
yeah, and she reminds me of that to tell me, hey, wait a minute, slow down. Not everybody understands what this is, and let's get back to the basics in some places. But no, and
Yeah.
in a good way, and I definitely mean it in a
Yes.
good way, because
Oh,
it is
absolutely.
truly, from my perspective, educational and worth watching. Just because I want to see, I'm learning something from her, maybe differently than other people are learning, but I'm learning something from her from a creator's perspective of, hey, these are the type of things you really need to pay attention, because even though they sound normal to us because we see them every day, they're not normal, you know? It's like walking in the middle of an algebra test two semesters in, or geometry test, even worse, maybe. Anyway, let's get on with it. So disaster recovery. So I've got this really great plan all drawn out this week for us. So I'm just going to start at the top, and when we get tired, we'll stop. And I do have a couple of questions that came in also. So I want to make sure I get to some of those. So there's a few of them that are really key, that are premium ones that I really want to make sure we answer. The rest of them we'll get to if we have time. But if we decide that we're getting tired and we want to get out of here, just point it out to me and we'll switch to the questions and kind of skip some of this or go through it quickly. Okay?
Sounds good.
Because you know me, I could sit here all night long and blab about it. Okay, so let's talk about what do you actually need to keep running as your system when a disaster happens. And this is one of the things that I've seen that a lot of people don't really stop and think about. And it was something that I covered probably last week a little bit too. But it's something that really is, and I ask you, Mike, specifically, when you think about a disaster, what are the things that you realize that you can give up? And what are the things that you know you can't give up? Because obviously, and I know you had this is a great question for you. So for those of you who don't know, this winter, Mike ran into some real issues with battery capacity. So it'll be great to hear how you plan to handle that differently.
All right, so let's look at this in a few different ways. So the first thing is the average person who, fish tanks, absolutely. You've got to keep that going. The heater's got to stay on, but you can go 6-8 hours without heaters, depending, and the water is fine. But circulation, all your corals start dying if you don't have it. The average person, so I would say if they have 3 things, they're okay short term. First thing is the fridge powered? So you want to make sure that you have, some sort of backup. Could be a power station, could be an inverter and batteries, just something to keep the fridge going. So that's number 1. Number 2 is going to be lights, because, lighting candles is probably one of the most dangerous things you can do. And if there's a power outage and you have a bunch of candles lit, you can turn it into a really big disaster pretty quick if someone accidentally knocks one over.
It's always funny in movies where when you see power outages and stuff, and they light the candles and there's like 80 candles burning, and I always say to myself, what are they going to do tomorrow?
I just think, what happens if a kid knocks it over and they don't make it out? Candles. I'm not fond of candles. If you watch, there's YouTuber that's city prepping, Chris. I forgot what his last name is, but I love his channel. And he talks about one of the big things you don't do is light candles, because during emergency situations, people light candles and their house burns down. So make sure you have lights. Third thing is, do you have internet? So if you have Starlink or you have something else, can you keep that powered to where you still have communication? If you have communication, you have refrigeration, and you have lights, you're normally okay for a bit. You can go without AC. You can plug in, a fan or what have you, and those don't use much power. And I think for the average person that has a storm that knocks out the power, I think that's fine. And I think that's the basics, especially for people that, take medications. I know with me, I take very expensive medications that are like $3,000 a month without insurance. And that's part of the reason why I got into this, is my power kept on going out. And I'm like, okay, so is XYZ electric company going to reimburse me if my meds go bad? Yeah. So I think that's the basics. Once you get past that, then it's kind of, do you have certain loads that you need to run, your critical loads? And then from there, now you're starting to get into mostly off grid and then completely off grid. But I think for disaster recovery, there's a few different aspects to it. So, what sort of disaster? If you're talking about a fire, you're going to want to turn off your inverters and everything else and run. If you're talking a hurricane, are your panels secured well? It really depends. Do you have solar or not? What sort of disaster is it? Is the disaster a backup to your setup? So, like if my house, if my inverters, I get the magic gray smoke for some reason, I could flip the grid right on my main panel and I'm still up. Um, so it depends on what kind of disaster, or if you're talking a backup to your backup, or you're talking, power
So,
outage, fire,
so for
hurricane,
me, I know,
tornado, what have you.
yeah, and I know for me that when it comes to disasters, for me, it's going to be the hurricanes, the tornadoes, maybe the floods, depending on where I happen to be. Here, I'm not too bad, but when I was traveling a lot in the RV, I was closer to the rivers and the beaches more, and that would get me. What exactly? Which ones are you looking at? Hurricanes, obviously, are your big ones.
For
You
me,
had
it's hurricanes and floods. So I'm not in a flood zone, but I do get water from surrounding properties that go towards mine. So between myself and my neighbor, I made a large ditch and I put together a cart that has solar input, has split phase output, and has a single 48-volt, 100 amp hour battery. And I'm going to have that set up with the ditch with a big pump that if that thing ever gets too high, I can flip it on and pump it out to where it's not going, settling onto my property or going around my house. So that's the kind of stuff that I deal with: hurricanes and a little bit of water issues.
and you had cold issues this past year.
I
Was that
did.
just
So
standard cold issues, or was that blizzard?
no, it was one of the odd ones. Like every 10, 15 years, you'll get
Yeah.
it to where it's down into the teens. And the issue that I had is it was getting up to like 25 during the daytime and getting into the low teens, high single digit at nighttime. And your batteries need to be at least 32 degrees. Now, granted, they won't charge unless they're at 32 degrees, but still, it's not good for them to be underneath, say, 40 degrees. Because number one, your capacity's gone under 40 degrees. But number two, it's still you're shortening their life tremendously once they get down into those temperatures. So I was trying to keep them warm, and now I've added about 25% more solar capacity and about a third more battery capacity. So I should be fine. And the other thing too that I'm doing is I'm having an outlet for the house system inside the chill area of my shop. So I'm going to be able to pull power to run miners inside this area to keep the batteries warm from two different systems. So I think that's going to make a tremendous difference. And then of course I'll have my generator set up
So, are
as a
you
just
actually
in
going to
case.
use the miners
For
as your
heat, yeah, to
heating
keep the batteries
for your
warm.
heaters?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know which would be. I don't know if obviously during a disaster you're going to be looking at the most efficient way to keep things warm. Miners are good for normal day to day heat, keeping them warm because they throw a lot of heat. I know I just installed a new vent in the side of my shed. I'm going to put a giant filter
Right.
around the actual miner itself because I pulled it apart the other day. I had to replace a couple of fans, and
Ah,
I'm getting sand grit through the boards because the airflow, there's so much airflow going through, and they
yeah.
cover it with that sticky. Um, it's not the
Yeah.
normal just moisture
It's
protection, but
resin that goes onto the board to help protect it, but it captures all the debris. Yeah.
yeah, it captures all the little things. So I had all this sand in there, so I had to meticulously sit there for about 3 hours brushing out all of the circuitry and getting all of that sand grit out of it and everything. And it never even dawned on me, I'm here. My whole yard is sand. My backyard is sand. My front yard is sand. That's all I have is
Right.
sand.
Right.
Um, so, but so I have to vent my heat. I mean, it was hot and humid is all I get. But I've only been down below freezing once since I moved here, 14
Right.
years ago. So for me, that's not a big fear. You're a bit further north than me.
I am. I've got a bunch of different heaters. So two of my miners, my jazz miners that do Ethereum Classic, each one of them only draws 500 watts. So with two of them in this 20 by 30 room running 24/7, it's 1,000 watt heater that's constantly running. Whereas a regular heater will kick on and kick off. This would be constant. So that should be enough to keep it. But I could throw on another miner if needed. You can move the floor to not have to worry about any of the cold batteries. This is true, Donald. This is true. And I've
So,
lived in Florida 3 times, Orlando twice, and Tampa once. So it's a beautiful place.
yeah, I'm on the other coast from it, but
Yep.
yes, it is. I'm not sure I like the inland stuff anymore. I'm getting kind of used to being near the water and enjoy it. But there are some things you have to do differently with solar when you get close to the sea water and the ocean water and the moisture and all of that. So so tell me about, and I'm going to change the subject here for just a second because curiosity is going to get me as normal. But your new miner, I heard how quiet it is, but the question is it dissipating the same amount of heat and it's just doing it with those giant fins that I saw in your video? Is that what's going on?
Yes. Yes. So 100% of the energy that goes to a miner is going to come off as heat. So it's just as efficient as a space heater with putting out heat, except you're actually getting paid to do it. And even at say 12, 13 cents a kilowatt, you're still breaking even or still making something off of it. So even if I
Are you
needed to
doing pool
flip back
mining
to
or
the
are you
grid,
doing solo? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
um, I don't do solo at all. Solo is a ripoff for a lot of it, because if you solo mine, let's just say if you take an S19 and you solo mine with it, you do have better chance of winning low, which is true, but it's like 2 to 3 times better of a chance. It's still such a far fetch that you would actually hit it, that is just so much better to just pull mine,
And
because the
now you're
solo is
talking
just
about, but you're talking about hitting the big ones like the bit mining and the Bitcoin or something along those
correct.
lines. Now what
Correct,
I've
to be
been
able to
doing
hit a
is
block.
going through some of the smaller ones like the Digibyte, the Quai, the most recent one that I just started back a few days ago. So what I do is I go in and I'll mine two, three, four, $500 of each one, and then move on to the
Mhm.
next, and then just see if. And I'm doing it in solo mining, so you find out if you can hit. Now I got really lucky with the one I was mining the other day. I hit like $80 in like 4 hours. I was like, whoa!
Really?
And then
We're
it went
gonna
for
have to
six
talk
days
offline
without
about
hitting
that.
anything. Yeah, then it went for 6 days without hitting anything. So I was kind of like, yeah, well, you know, beginner's luck.
Is it kind of like a slot machine at that point? You get it pays out, and then you put quarters back in. Come on, come on.
Yeah, but the difference is where, like you said with the bit miner of like if you're doing Bitcoin, you're absolutely right. I mean, you could mine for 100 years and not hit. And even if you
Yeah.
go with Bitcoin Cash, I mean, you could still mine for 10 years and not hit anything. But if you go with something like Digibyte, and you're hitting the 80, 90 terabyte hashes like we are,
Right.
you're going to hit one, average one or two a day, regardless. And
Okay.
it,
That's
and then you're
different
going to
then.
be, and then each one's different. So like the Digicoin, I think is 262 coins when you hit. So you get, enough to, now they're only worth, 8 or 10 cents a piece, but they don't have to move a whole lot to become pretty valuable because you can go in and,
Right.
spend 3 months mining them and do like I did. I went into Digibyte, and I think I mined like 25,000 coins. and then I move on to something else. I went into Quai and I mined, another. I think on that one it was 12 or 15,000 coins. It just depends on how frequently you hit and how enjoyable it is to hit. Because I just don't like the pool mining simply because it's just a formula. It's just it just runs and you're never going to hit anything big. It's just going to run consistent. Yeah.
Right.
Maybe it's the Vegas gambler in me.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I thought initially you were talking about as far as with Bitcoin doing, because there's a lot of the lucky miners out and all this stuff, and you're solo mining, especially when you have these smaller units that are like 9 terahash or 15 terahash, and they're doing solo for Bitcoin, and it's like you're never hitting.
Those are lottery. Yeah, those are lottery.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, people do hit them, but they're. I mean, I bought one of those little ones for my wife. The one off of like AliExpress, and you pay $50 for it, and the odds of hitting are 1 in 7 billion years to 1. But it's kind of cool because it does keep the Bitcoin all week long, as has been going up. So as it's been going up all week, she's been logging into her account, going, "Look how much it went up! Look how much it went up!" Because you look over and you see the green, 3.4%. Somebody's cashing in somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, didn't mean to get off subject, but I had to ask because we were here, and why not?
Right.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about understand a little bit about the disaster recovery prep and what kind of prep does need in different areas. Are you for me with the hurricanes? I'm looking at pure grid failures, and that's kind of what I'm looking for is really backup power as far as. And the reason I'm asking is not rolling blackouts, not just normal long-term outages. There's a big distinction in having, in my mind, there's a big distinction in having complete outage like with a hurricane, simply because a lot of devices around your neighborhood go off after a couple of days anyway, because all of their backup grid. So I'm assuming you're kind of looking at the same thing.
Yeah, well, mine's a little bit different. Right now, summertime, I don't have to flip back to the grid at all, even if it's like 5-6 days of cloudy days, because we just had that this month, and all I needed to do was just turn off the miners, and I was able to had enough to suffice. So it's kind of like it's weird because we had gotten a message from like the electric company, or not the electric, it was like, I'm trying to remember if it was in the news or what it was, but it was saying that on the East Coast, the electric companies are ramping up to 100% capacity just to meet the needs because it's been extremely hot lately. And I turned to my wife and I'm like, well, I guess we're helping because we haven't used any power from the grid this month. So it's kind of like,
yeah, and I'm running into the same thing. So I use mine for bit mining when I have excess power, and then when I don't, I use it as a backup. But then the thing happens is when something does happen. Like, it's funny you should say that because it was either last night or the night before, and this big thunderstorms rolled through. And I mean, we hadn't had a whole lot of rain. We've been getting the clouds, so we're not getting the sun, but we're not getting the rain either. So we've got a drought and we don't have the sun. And I'm like, that's not fair. So I've had to cut back a little bit on my bit mining and go down to, I think I've been burning off between 28 and 30, 35 kilowatt hours a day, as opposed to the normal 70, 75 that I was doing. And the lights flickered, and my wife looked over and she says, "Wow, did you see that?" I said, "Yeah, bring it on. I finally got something good to use my power on." Because we haven't actually got to use it in a long time like that.
So when you have the lights flickering, do you just immediately switch over to backup and just disconnect?
No.
Because you could have surges come in.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing. This is the one thing that I'll be going through probably in a complete video series I've got coming up over the next month or two. It's going to be all about this subject here and different size systems and stuff. But the my original purchase of a solar system was a grid tied solar system.
Yeah.
And so my home has a warranted grid tied solar system from an actual company that's honoring the warranty. That's probably 4 or 5 years old now, but they've covered everything. I mean, they call me and say, "Oh, you've got a microinverter that's out. We'll be out on Tuesday to replace it. Is it okay if we go in your backyard?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they come out and fix it. So at this point, I'm very reluctant to do anything that's going to void my warranty with them, simply because, matter of fact, I think it's probably one of maybe only the two companies I've ever heard that actually honored their warranties, that were
That's
around long enough to do it.
right. That's what I was kind of surprised with, is that a lot of them, it's just, kind of like a snake oil salesman, and we're going to get you all this, and then they leave. You never hear from them again. And I mean, I've heard stories of someone gets their stuff installed, they're told it's this warranty, and then 2 weeks later the company files for bankruptcy, and it's like, you didn't know that 2 weeks previous.
I did an interview with a gentleman I met at a gun show. I guess it was 2 months ago. I put Richard out on the website, and that's because YouTube flagged me for his real name. He goes by Dick, and
Mhm.
the story of Dick was just not going to make it with YouTube in the title. So I had to change it to the story of Richard. But if you go and look at that story, I sat down, and I occasionally I'll sit down with people who have interesting stories about solar companies. And this company came out and did exactly that. They sat with him, they sold him this bag of tricks, all this wonderful stuff, and they left and filed bankruptcy the next day.
Whoa.
And the
So,
sad part is that he had thrown one of their associates out because the guy had, seemed like a shyster, and the
right.
owner came and filled in for him. So it's not like there was any excuses. I think, as I called it during the interview, and it's one of the very few interviews where I actually sat down and listened more than I talked, because, usually I'm asking questions and it's a conversation back and forth. And with this guy, I was just sitting there going, I couldn't believe how bad it was. It was, and this is my opinion is, a lot of these companies are causing this. They're causing this problem themselves. They're destroying a market that they're biting the hand that feeds them, is what I see it as.
It sounds horrible, but that happened to me. I'd be showing up at the owner's front door of his house and say, "Look, you're making this right." You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I would too. And the sad thing is, you'll have to go back and watch that interview,
Yep.
or you'll have to go back and watch his story, because it really wasn't an interview. It was basically me sitting there listening to him in awe of the fact that he made it. And the sad part is there was a bunch of footage before that where I talked to him out in the yard, where he went through a whole bunch of rigmarole with the city and all of that, and none of the footage was any good. So I had to cut it all out. But then after I got to the footage of sitting with him in his house and just listening to his story, it was amazing. But
Wow.
Donald,
Very sad.
congratulations.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about. Yes, absolutely. So let's get back to, where was I at here? So, and I know we both probably have very strong opinions on this one. But this one comes up
Okay.
so often that I want to ask you. I want to get
Okay.
your opinion on, and I'm going to just list a couple of devices here. It says solar generators versus DIY solar systems versus whole home backups. Tell me what your opinion is when it comes down to portable solar generators, DIY batteries, inverters, RV style systems, critical load panels, whole home backups, grid tied solar system, hybrid inverters, transfer switches, blah, 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 all of that. I mean, what is your ideal situation, and what do you think is the ideal world for handling disasters like this?
So I think everyone should have a portable power station if they're in a place that loses power or not, if they're in a location that has weather events versus others that don't. Um, Everyone should have a portable power station. enough to run the fridge, to run the lights, and run the internet. There's no reason why someone in the United States shouldn't have it unless they couldn't afford it, of course. But I think it's necessary, especially with how strained that the grid is and how it's becoming apparent that it can no longer be trusted like it used to be. You have components that are now 50 years old. The price to replace all these large transformers and everything is out of reach. They're made out of country now. So there's delays in getting them. And let's be honest, a lot of states and a lot of power companies, they're not willing to invest the money. And that's why everybody's rates are going up. And there's more brownouts. And if you look at California with all the wildfires, and I agree with their decision, but if there's a wildfire close to like a substation or a power plant, they just shut down the grid for that area. And I totally get it because it lessens the amount of damage to the infrastructure. But if your power's out for a week, that's or longer, that's you're in a bad spot because everybody should have something like that. So that's the basics. When it comes to a system that's installed and it is done by an installer versus DIY, I think the installer route a lot of times is better. And there's reasons for it, because if you have a company that installs it, all the components that you all listed, you have your permits, you have everything else, and there's any sort of a, say you have a fire, say something big happens, you have a better chance of your insurance company covering the claim than you do if you go DIY. If you go DIY, and you did it yourself, let's say you got the permits or not or what have you, there's a higher chance that they're going to deny a claim. That's just my opinion. So
Do you think
if you can if you can afford to do it and it makes sense and it's someone that's reputable doing it, try to do UL listed, try to make sure you have permits that covers your insurance, to where you're not going to have any sort of issues. DIY is going to save you a ton of money, absolute ton of money, and you learn a lot as you go along. Just make sure you don't hurt yourself, you don't hurt anybody else, and try to stick with UL listed batteries and inverters and everything else. And some of mine are, some of mine aren't, and I'm in the process of replacing the ones that aren't UL listed with UL listed components. Going off grid or staying on grid, if you can pull off grid, I do it. You're prepaying for your energy at today's rates, and no one can take it from you. It's your power. You can use as much or as little as you want, and you have freedom. And what do I mean by freedom? I can turn on all the lights in the house. I can put the temperature of the house, whatever that my wife and I want it to be, and we're not concerned, hey, if it's summertime and we turn it down too much, we're going to have a big power bill.
Yeah.
We don't have to worry about
the biggest
that.
concern you have is the same one I have is, oh man, the bit miner is going to run 2 hours less tonight than it did yesterday.
Pretty much. And I know I've had some people ask me in the past, why do you have so many inverters? Why do you have so many batteries? When I started doing this, the important thing to me in the shop was that I could run all my equipment, in which I can. For the house, my wife had said, you can do this. Everything's got to stay in the shop. I don't want any of this in the house or in the garage or what have you of the house. But she said, I don't want to have to worry about
is it going to work and turning this on and turning that on?
Right. I don't want to have to worry about I'm using the stove and can the dryer run at the same time, or we've got to turn this off to do that. She's like, I just want to do what I want to do, and I don't
Have it
want
work.
to, you know, yeah, just have it work. And that's
Yeah.
why we did it. And that brings up the other part of disaster recovery is if you have one inverter and it fails, you have no inverter. If you have two, now you have one. If you have three, now you have two. If you size your capacity to where you can get by with two, then you get three. If you can get by with one, you get two. And that way, no matter what, if you have a failure or you're doing some maintenance on the system, you're still fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's an important distinction that I've made too, is that there's one thing that you do when you're building the system for your everyday life. Because I'm of the same boat that you're in. I don't think my wife minds me doing it at all, but she don't want me telling her, hey, if you're running the stove, don't turn on the dryer. And if you're running the dryer, don't turn on the heater. And if you're running this, don't turn on that. She just wants to operate. Whether I get rid of the electric bill or not is not her problem. She don't
Right.
care. So that's one thing. Now, when we're talking disaster recovery, or disaster system for just disaster, you were absolutely right in saying, look, you got to have your refrigerator, some basic lights, some basic medical devices, a CPAP machine, those type of
Mm-hmm.
things. And you need to make sure that if you are getting a portable solar generator or a one of those type devices, that it is big enough to do what you really want to do, because that is probably the second biggest scam that I see out going on right now, is that all these companies are promoting these solar generators and crap, and they've got, run your refrigerator and blah blah blah, and they've got less than 1 kilowatt hour. They won't last overnight, let alone run
No,
your
you won't.
refrigerator for days as they claim.
You need
They
two.
might if
You
you
need,
had sun 24 hours a day, but you don't. So that
yeah.
would be the second one there. I also agree with you firmly on DIY will save you a lot of money, but I'm going to say what I always say here. This is not a license to be reckless, careless, or dangerous. It
Yep.
should be just the opposite, because you're protecting your own family, you're watching after yourself. And I tend to agree that a professionally installed system has some benefits, and I'll outline a few of them. If I was to go on a trip and they have a major outage while I'm gone, what my wife would need to do to plug the system in and make it work, it would be the equivalent of plugging in a generator, but it still would be something. If it was a professionally installed solar system with battery backup, she probably wouldn't even know that it was a power outage in the neighborhood, because it would just take over. Now, that doesn't mean you can't install something like that with DIY. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying there is a difference between a truly emergency backup system and a whole home everyday average, just use it, and something that you use. And you'll know I'm a proponent of the hybrid system. Something that you
Mm-hmm.
use year round for one purpose, but it's there when you have a disaster. And that's kind of what my system
Right.
is. But that's because of the warranty issue that I run into with the solar company that I have. And it was, it's a $50,000 system. So I don't want to mess with a warranty on a system that big. But at the same time, if the power goes out, I'm going out to the shed and plugging mine into the house and going to do it. Um, so I think a lot of that. Now, then it gets down to critical loads panels. And I think this is probably where a lot of people have a hard time with disaster recovery. There is a big distinction, and I don't know how you feel about this. And Mike, I'm sure you have some good advice for this too. I'll let you speak your piece here too.
Mm-hmm.
But sitting down and really thinking about what you really have to have and what you would like to have is two different things. I don't know if any of you remember the movie Alive. You have
Yeah.
to eat. You don't have to have an air conditioner. And that's the real distinction that you really need to make when you're thinking about critical loads. You have to have your medicine, maybe your CPAP machine, your, a refrigerator to have so you can have some food, and that. You don't have to have an air conditioner. You don't have to have hot water. Sure, you're going to stink after a few days of not having a shower, but you don't have to have it to live. That's, I think, the distinction. Go ahead.
So I'm going to go off on a tangent real quick and I'll be right
Go
back, but I
for it.
think it's really important. Neither one of us have mentioned generator.
We'll get there. It's my next thing on the thing.
And the
But go
reason,
for it.
and I'll make it really short because we'll get to it then. If you don't start your generator monthly, you don't own a generator. It doesn't exist. So if you ever go in the wild and you see, let's just say if it's a bunch of chimpanzees and they get hit with a dart and they're all around and are like, what happened? But then you cover it up with something and then they can't say it, okay, it doesn't exist. Well, the generators do not exist if they don't start monthly. If you don't start it every month, you don't have a generator. Don't even think I have a you don't. You don't own one. It's gone. So that's really important. That's why I didn't mention it. I said have a portable power station because that's going to work. That's plugged in, it's charged, it's going to work 100% of the time, unless it's got an internal fault. But generators, especially the standby generators that no one ever uses, they don't work.
I ran into I'll tell you a funny story. This wasn't this past weekend. I think it was 2 weekends ago. What is today? The 15th. 2 weekends ago? Yeah, 2 weekends ago. Maybe 3. I do a gun show here in the Melbourne area every month. And I hear some of the craziest stories. And this one guy came to me this weekend and he's like, "Oh, solar, this is great. I love DIY solar and everything. I bought myself one of those solar generators. So I've got it. It's in my garage." I'm like, "Great. How does it work?" He says, "Oh, it's still in the box. I bought it like 3 years ago. I've never had to use it." And I'm like, "And you're never going to get to, even if the hurricane comes." It's supporting exactly what you said. What is the purpose of having it if you never ever use it or know what it can actually is capable of doing?
And if he never plugs it in and it's got LFP or lithium ion, because the older ones were lithium ion, it gets down to zero, it bricks. So it's really, it's
And
dangerous charging it, or at least trying to at that point.
I'm just sitting there looking at him going, "Really? You've never even taken it out of the box?" He goes, "No, but when I need it, it'll be there." And I'm like, "I don't think so, buddy." But that said, and I think the next piece that I was going to cover here is talking about charging and batteries and stuff like that. So a lot of people know that one of the big what I'm a big proponent of is you build a system that can run everything you need it to run, but you don't actually have to be able to sustain a week or 2 weeks without the sun if you have something like a generator that can replenish that power thing. But the important thing to remember is that when and this is one thing that I can't get through people's heads sometimes, especially in person. I love having these conversations in person because you hear that you could see the people's expressions and tell you honestly, look you in the face and say, "Well, yeah, but if I have a hurricane, I got this, 12,000 watt generator and I'm just going to plug it into my house." And I'm like, "Oh, that's great. Going to plug it into the house. And have you done that yet?" "Well, no, but when I do, it's going to work." I said, "Oh, that's wonderful." And how much gas do you have?" "Oh, well, it's got probably about a half a tank, so I should be okay." And I'm just thinking, these are the type of things that like you said, if you haven't done it, used it, turned it on, and you're going to see from a video I do next week, I've got 2 big videos planned next week. And the first one is I'm going to do a review of a middle of the road inverter. Because I've got a small inverter, like a 2000, 2600 watt one. And I've got a big one, the 9500 or an 8700 inverter. Both inverter and regular generator. But I didn't have one in the middle. And then after I do the review for the one in the middle, then I'm going to do which one's the most efficient, which one charges the best, what kind of comparison of the 3, which should be a really cool comparison. But one of the things that I do every year, and it's become more of a twice a year thing now, which you should appreciate, is that I pull all the generators out and I replace all the gas by burning it off and charging up the batteries and making sure that it actually works. And then I
Yep.
fill it up with a fresh tank of gas and do it again to make sure that I haven't clogged up the carburetors and jammed up the machines. And the inverter generator, I had to actually do a carburetor cleaning on the last time I did this because it was clogged. So just sitting
Yep.
around, they get bad, or the batteries die, and they won't start. And if they don't have handle pulls, then you're stuck there. But it
Yep.
this is one of the things that these people just people don't think about it. So I think the moral of the story here is, if you've got a generator, I use the generator to charge my batteries. I don't use it to run my house. But if you've got a generator and you've never actually plugged it in and used it for any length of time, I suggest you do so and figure out how much gas you're going to actually need to operate for a couple of days, because I think you will be really surprised when you find out you have to have a backyard full of gas cans or propane tanks.
20, 30 gallons, right?
Yeah. I need 47 gallons for my complete backup plan.
Wow.
As it stood the last time I tested, it was 47 gallons. Now, that means that what I do is I count my autonomy. Now, my autonomy days have changed dramatically since the last time I did my test. But if the storm hit tomorrow, I want to make sure that I can operate for X number of days in autonomy, and then 3 times a full charge is what I look for to be able to charge my batteries. And that would buy me, let's say I have 3 days of autonomy. That means I would have technically 12 days of autonomy. And then any sun or anything outside of that, the grid comes back on for a couple of hours, or the sun comes out for a day or a half a day, or I'm only getting 10% or whatever for 5 or 6 days. I could extend that quite a bit there. But that is something that I have. The plan is at the beginning of every season, I get that amount of gas. And at the end of that season, my wife has a month's worth of gas for her car, because you can't keep it for very long either. It doesn't age well. And unless you have a
No.
diesel generator or a propane generator or a natural gas generator or something along those lines, it just doesn't fit the bill. So what is
Agreed.
tell me about, I know this winter you ran into some issues with battery capacity. Did you end up getting some kind of backup generator plan in place too?
So I do have a generator and I've got a charge inverter, so that's got to be hooked up. I did add battery capacity and solar capacity, so I really shouldn't need the generator, but it will be set up. Going back to your previous question, what is my definition of critical loads and what needs to be on? So for most people, I would say 120 volt circuits is really what you need. You really don't need to have your HVAC, which is your 240, unless it's extreme weather, of course. Um, the only exception is if you have a well pump, because if you have a well like mine, it's 240. It's not 120. I think yours is 120. You said that yours was a shallower well.
Yeah, I can run
Um,
mine with a little 1200-watt generator.
yeah, so it's, make sure that your basics are covered. If you're, say, in the Midwest, um, and say you're in Wisconsin and it's wintertime and the power goes out, if you don't have wood heat or natural gas heat, or even natural gas, you still need to have the blower motor and everything kick on. So I mean, you got to make sure that you're covered um, for the weather extremes. For me, it's not as big of a deal, but for a lot of people, it really is, and having some sort of redundancy. So for me, my house has the grid as the backup. My shop has the generator as the backup. But you always want to have, some sort of backup. And then I also have the power stations. I've got like a dozen power stations. So, if I have a neighbor that has no power, I can charge up power stations, which I keep them charged anyway at like 80%. I could always just kind of loan them out here, use this, you can get some lights on and do this and do that. So,
No,
I mean,
the funny thing is I don't even have a power station. I have a lot of little solar systems. I had a friend of mine, you'll appreciate this. She called me during the last hurricane when the power was out for so long. She's like, look, I've got this saltwater tank, and if I can't get the air pump to run, I'm going to lose everything.
yep,
And
real quick.
she had this little bitty motor, little bitty pump that she needed to run. I mean, it was like 80 watts or something. And I like brought over a
Yeah,
little 100 amp hour 12-volt battery and a 300-watt inverter because I wanted the idle consumption as low as possible.
perfect.
Plugged it in, ran her thing for 5-6 days, I think it was, without any hiccups whatsoever, but saved all of her fish. So it's just the little things like that that if you don't ever test them, you don't know they work. I think that's the point that we're trying to make here.
And if you have a decent sized reef tank and you don't have circulation and you go 4, 6 hours, what have you, um, you lose 10 grand in coral and fish pretty quick.
Yeah. And that was her fear. She was going to lose it all. And then at the same time, you're in the middle of a hurricane and you got this, dead fish everywhere, and it's like you can't even flush them down the toilet because you don't have any water because you're in city water and they've got it all shut down.
Once a tank starts crashing, it is very, very hard to try to stop it once the chain reaction starts.
So how many days of autonomy are you looking at? I know with me, I originally I know that the sweet spot's somewhere around 2.5 to 3 days for most people. You can live through most bad things with 2.5 to 3 days.
I'm
Obviously, 7 days to 10 days is fantastic, and you can live through almost anything because that's wonderful. But what, where are you in that thing? I mean, I was at 2.5 when I was in my RV. To be honest with you, I have no idea where I am now. This next phase of testing I'll be doing over the next couple of weeks will tell me.
it's been probably a few months since I've been on grid. Um, my goal is 365 off grid, and if there's a zombie apocalypse, I'm good.
Yeah.
but
That,
the,
mine is to get it to where I don't ever have to worry about it again. But
exactly.
I right now the wife and I are looking for a nice piece of property somewhere because it's like I keep telling her, I'm like, I'm sick of the city living. I just want to go somewhere. But she wants to have, her coffee shop attached to it as part of it. It's so I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, so we got to find a property that has, that's large enough to where up at the front she can be on a main road with a coffee shop, but way back in the back I can have my privacy and a nice workshop and stuff like that. But the ideal situation there would be 100% off grid because I'm not doing it again, and it makes
Well,
a lot.
it's so here's the issue. You have ABC Power Company, and you get a text message. The power is out in your area. Will be up in 4 or 5 hours, and you're looking at it. Okay, let me turn the outside lights off on the porch. Okay,
Yeah,
we're good.
yeah, that happened to me once at an RV park. I don't remember where I was. I think I was in Pennsylvania, but I honestly I'm not 100% sure. And I'm sitting there, and I I'm somebody knocks on the door. The guy had helped me. Oh, I was in Texas. I was in South Texas, and I had got there, and the slide on my RV had broke. It had gone out
Ooh,
about halfway, and then the frame came snapped apart from it. And the guy who ran the place was just a super nice guy, and he had a workshop. I'm like, look, if I can find somebody around here who has a big enough thing to bend this back into shape, because it was just like a V-shaped piece of metal, but it was one of
right,
those big, thick, quarter-inch pieces of steel that you hit it with a hammer and it just laughed at me. Um,
right.
and he had a workshop, and he took it and he straightened it out, and he helped me get the slide working again, um, so I could at least get it home and get it welded back on the way it was supposed to be. But so at that place, there was one night where he came over, he knocked on the door, and he said to me, he says, you might want to shut off your porch lights. And I'm like, why? He says, because the RV park's been dark for 2 hours and everyone keeps asking why you have lights and they don't.
Yeah.
They thought I was getting some special preferential treatment. I had no idea because a lot of times I go in an RV park and I don't even bother plugging in. Or at least I didn't. I've downsized some of the batteries a little bit now, but a lot of times I just didn't even plug in. I would just be like, I had 30 kilowatt hours in an RV. It's like, how much could you possibly use even if you tried? Especially when all your big devices are propane. All right. Back on subject here, or at least somewhere on subject. So do you use any of the fancy technology for prepping for storm? In other words, do you see storms coming? And obviously at this point you're completely off grid, so you probably don't even think about it. You don't even care if there's storms coming. I know, like tonight for me, I saw some storms coming, and because I saw the lights flicker the other night, I thought, wow, here's an opportunity. I'm going to charge my batteries up, and then if I don't need it, then I got an extra 10 or 15 kilowatts I can use for the Bitminer later. Do you do any prep like that?
So I'll look at if there's big storms coming. I'll look at the battery bank to see what's the state of charge, and then see, do I need to turn some things off? Like, do I need to turn the miners off? Do I need to conserve? As long as I'm not going longer than a week cloudy, I'm in pretty good shape. And when I say cloudy, I'm not talking partly cloudy. I'm talking like storming from morning to night. As long as it's not a week, I'm pretty much good. I've got about 7 days worth of power with no sun.
Wow. So you got 7 days of time. That's a good long time.
Yeah.
That probably makes it really easy decision for you. I don't think I'm going to end up with that much. I think I'm going to end up with probably 2, maybe 3 days in full house on. And we're talking about no conservation. And we've got,
Right.
hot water heaters electric, stove is electric, dryer is electric. I mean, the whole thing, it's an all electric. So, but if I
Same
was in
here.
a disaster mode, a lot of that stuff would all go away. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have the wash machine and the dryer running during a hurricane just because I can, unless of course I just had the power and wanted to clean some laundry. But
Now, when I say this, I'm talking summertime. Winter time, because I'm all electric just like you, I won't know this year. So I was doing 3-4 days on battery, and then I would have to do a day or two on grid, and then I might go a week on battery, and then a few days on grid. So 25% more batteries and a third more solar. So I'm hoping I'll be able to do somewhat similar, but it's probably going to be about 4 days of cloudy during the winter time.
yeah, those cloudy days are a killer. I mean, it's one thing to have a majority of the time off of the grid, and it's completely different to be off grid, totally non-dependent.
Right.
Because having power 24/7, when you have to prepare for the absolute worst, and that means if you have a week of bad weather, you have to have a week of batteries. If you have 2 weeks of bad weather, you got to have 2 weeks of batteries, or you're in the dark. Question here from Colin saying, I start in solar industry the 22nd. Is this a good career? It's usually commercial.
I think it's a
And
great career.
yeah, I mean, we're going to be really partial to saying, yes, we think it's a great career. The only aspect of the career that, hopefully maybe you're in the installation aspect of it, or I don't know if you're in the sales part of it or whatnot. The sales part of it, I have some harsh words for some of those people because not a lot of them really play fair with people, and they don't really take the time to explain all of the options. That a lot of them go for the easy sell and the commissions. And I wish they would take that aspect of it out of the solar system. I really do. I feel like the solar industry sales marketing arm is a lot like used car dealers, and I think I think they've already given themselves that reputation. And the problem is I'm hoping that it doesn't escalate to the point where it completely destroys the commercial market. It's already getting very difficult. I mean, I already get several questions a week of, well, what kind of installer, who can I trust, and that kind of stuff. It's almost one of those things where you're going to have to start finding a list of those trustworthy ones that I can actually refer to people, because it's happening more and more often.
But
So
even the trustworthy ones, they're all going out of business, so many of them. So you can go with someone that's well known, installs in 5, 6, 7 different states, and 3 of those big companies just went bankrupt within the last like 4 months. So even if you have it installed, it doesn't mean that your warranty is going to be worth the paper that it's written on. The reason why I would say it's good to get into the industry, if you're an installer, and a preference is that, because I'm in IT, Matt's in IT, he probably follows up on AI as much as I do. I spend a lot of time on automation and keeping up with AI. So many of the white collar jobs are going to be gone within the next 5 to 7 years. And the people that are going to survive are going to be physical. It's going to be your electricians. It's going to be your plumbers. It's going to be your HVAC guys and gals. Solar installers, I think, is going to be really good as well. Linemen is another good one. Anything that is physical, I think, is good. And I think you're kind of future-proofing yourself. Just don't go to college for 4 years, come out with a general business degree, and think that you're golden, because you're probably not at this point.
So it all comes down to, I think we kind of agree on this. It all comes down to it. Yes, it's a wonderful industry, but if you're on the sell side of things, please be one of the honest ones, because they're very rare, and you'll get a lot of good, what do you want to call it? Referrals if you're an honest one, and you will end up working for companies that go out of business if you're not. That's, I think, is going to be the simple thing. And that's not to say that some of the good companies aren't going out of business also. I mean, that's the problem is that the bad ones that are out for the money grab run the good ones out of business by cutting the cost, cutting corners, going after the money grabs, taking the money grab and getting out of the business. That causes the ones that are good to have to lower their prices and take a lot of the hits also.
And
anyway,
they screwed a lot of people. If you look at the average person that, especially earlier on, that had solar installed, they didn't mention, if the power goes out, your power goes out. But I've got all these panels on the roof. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. That goes off too.
Yeah.
And
this was something I mentioned last week, and I don't think anybody realizes how significant that is. 76% of all solar systems installed in the United States today, right now, go off with the grid.
Yep.
There's no battery backup. There's no power when the grid goes off. There's nothing other than saving a little bit of money when the power's on. And that's it. That's all there is.
Yeah.
It's a huge number. That is 3 out of every 4 people with solar. All right. Roy says, I got wind turbine that carried the load good when the power goes off. I have a backup battery system. You have a wind turbine that carries your load? Man, you must have one big wind turbine, and you must be in one windy part of the world. Where are you at?
So, Roy, you've got to go to windsolarforum.com and do a post on that, because not too many people have the wind part, and you should be heard. So I would check that out and do a post, because I want to see it. I think Matt wants to see it as well.
Yeah, I do. I want to see it really bad. There's a QR code up on the top left-hand corner of the screen for his solar form. great place to chat, talk, and I think we're going to do some stuff here where I'll probably start putting some blog posts out there. I've got some really cool ones on new theory I'm trying it in addition to YouTube, and maybe your forum will be the home for some of that. Anyway, all right. So let me see what else we got going on here. Wives will be robotic. There go. Yeah. I think we'll skip that one, Donald. 10 kilowatt battery turbine. Okay.
Wow. How many feet up in the air is that? Because you have to be high enough that it's clear air. So I'm curious how far up that is.
Need wind and solar to go off grid and work correctly. Yeah. No, I think the wind is a nice additive. I've never seen anybody actually go fully wind at just 120 feet. He says it's 120 feet off the ground.
120 feet. Okay. I mean, if
I know
you're
so
on the
little about it
coast,
other than what I've heard.
I mean, like some areas off the coast or just different parts of the states to where it's a constant wind. I mean, it's almost like hydro at that point, having like a stream and, getting power from hydro.
Yeah, but and I don't know anything about hydro either, but I just, everything that you hear about wind, everyone that I have talked to that has done wind, it is underperformed. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone saying that it's, oh, wow, I wasn't really expecting that. I'm getting, blah, blah, blah kilowatts a day, and I was expecting, I've never heard that. I hear that all the time with solar, but I never heard it with.
So here's the reason it's installed wrong in most situations. So the key thing is, number one, does your area have enough wind? Number two, do you have it at a height that is high enough that is at least 30 to 50 feet above all obstacles around it? Because it needs clean air. It can't have any turbulent air. Otherwise, it totally destroys the output. So like me, I have 100-foot trees around me. I would have to have it up 150 foot in the air, and it would have to be windy enough for it to be used. But you'll see like a lot of people that they'll put it up 30 feet in the air and they're like, huh, it ain't working. Or they'll connect it to the peak of their house, which is like 3 feet above the house, and it's all turbulent. It's not clean air at all, and it's just not gonna work.
Yeah, I didn't.
So
I didn't know that.
it's a bad rap.
Is it because it needs the airstream to be clean going around it? Is that what it is? It's a stream, a flow that the momentum carrying the blades forward, and without that you end up with those whisks and turbulence that causes it to be counterproductive, I'm assuming.
Yep.
That's the engineering part of my brain working, but that would be what I would assume why it would be problematic.
It would be you have an airplane, you're going through turbulence, and you're wondering why the plane is shaking and going up and down. Yes.
Yeah. Why it's shaking, going up and down, and not able to go as fast as it would if it was smoothly sailing through and just providing a little lift to keep the plane in the air. You can't get the barcode to work. Hold on a second. I'll get you a link.
You could also just type in windsolarforum.com. I'll put it in the. I could probably put it in the chat. Oh, you got it?
Put it in the chat for them. Yep.
Okay.
It's in the chat. You should be able to click on it from there. Here it is up on the screen also. Fortunately, it's my browser memory keeps it for me because I would never build. The only thing I can remember is the first word, wind, and it's always the only thing that pops up. All right. I am about 150 yards off the Gulf. Not much wind. Yeah, I don't get much on this coast either. So, I saw some when I was right down on the beach area, but I can't imagine, and now that I understand why, it would have to be high enough up for it to be able to pick it up. I don't know. I think there would be I think there's certain spots that that it would be ideal for it, and I just don't think that Florida's probably one of them.
And
Maybe I'm
you
wrong.
also have to remember that at ground level, you're going to have a lot less wind than you're going to have higher up. The higher you go, the more wind that you're going to have.
Yes. Yeah, you go high enough, you get a lot of wind, but you gotta
Yeah.
have a really strong pole. All right, back to our topics now that we got distracted by all of that. Can you see, Mike, see if that code works for you? If I'm posting a code and it's not working, I'm going to try it on my phone too. I want to make sure that I'm hoping it was just him and not the code.
It pulls right up.
Yeah, pulled up for me too. Okay. Must be this connection between the seat and keyboard over there. All right.
Nice. We had a different term in automotive. We used to call it loosen up behind the wheel.
Loosen up behind the wheel, yeah.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Okay, let's see. Well, we already talked about that. I'm going to skip that now. What are we doing here? Or that, or we
You were going to go back to generators at some point, right?
Well, we did go to generators at some point.
We did, but was there anything else that you wanted to talk about generators?
All right. Actually, I did write down a couple of points here about generators. So let's talk about, just kind of briefly, we'll get an idea of which each one is, because I think generators is a really important aspect of a good system, because a system without a backup is most likely not a system at some point. And I see generators as being the last ditch effort to save your keister. So talk to me, what do you think about where generators are the win? And from my perspective, the part where they shine the absolute most is on that time where you've exhausted your battery bank, you still don't have any solar, you had a really bad storm, maybe it knocked out some of your panels, maybe it's just been cloudy for too long, maybe you underestimated the time that you were going to have to survive without the sun, or maybe you have a large battery bank and you don't have any solar and you were just counting on having enough battery for 3 or 4 days, and now you need to replenish them. That's where I see generators shining. I see it where you plug them in, you figure out what the peak efficiency is of them, you take that power and you pump it back into your batteries and give yourself a new life and start over. That's what I see as the best part about generators.
I would say
Can you think of anything else?
Yeah, so there's a few things I want to mention. First thing is there's two different types of generators. You're going to have modified sine wave, which is going to be your less expensive generators. Usually it's an open frame generator, but not always, but usually. And then you have your pure sine, which are usually a closed type design. But like I said, it's just not 100% rule, but most situations. All right, so modified sine wave generator, be very careful about trying to power your house off it. You can do it, but you may also fry some of your sensitive electronics. Now, what might be considered a sensitive electronic? Well, you could fry the board on your AC system or your furnace if it's a really dirty generator, or you're maxing it out. That can happen. So you want to make sure that if you're plugging something in, try to make sure that it's pure sine wave. Or if it is modified sine wave, that you're not going over, say, 70% load, because once you hit towards that max, that harmonic distortion gets mighty ugly. Second thing is, but if you're plugging it into a charge inverter to charge batteries, it can be as ugly can be, and that's perfectly fine because that cleans it up. Second thing is
that was why I think it's best. I think that's where they shine the best, is at that 80, right at about that 75 to 80% mark, going through a charge inverter, hitting your batteries, pulling the maximum power you can And most generators are right around 80% where you get the best efficiency, 60 to 80%, somewhere in that range.
Yep.
But
The
that's not for your everyday use, like you were saying. That's just for
right.
charging.
The Now if you have a pure sine wave one, you can have a generator input going into your solar panel, and you have your either transfer switch or interlock switch. And if it's pure sine wave, you can run whatever that you want to run. Predator makes some really nice ones. There's a lot of other companies out there. Generac makes some nice ones, but for the average person, I think most of us shop at Harbor Freight. So Generacs or the Harbor Freight Predator is probably something you're accustomed to.
I've got a Predator and the 9500 and one of the 87s, and the inverter and the non-inverter. The
Yep.
non-inverter is great for doing charging. The inverter one is for just active use. That's a really
Yeah.
good one. My wife used
Yeah.
that one in her food trailer for a very long time before I rebuilt her a complete solar system there. Um, then I've got for a small one, a little like those little champions. Those are really good
Yep.
ones. The only thing you have to be careful about on those, as I recently learned, is they don't have built-in filters of any kind. And so
No.
the carburetors get clogged very, very easy. So if you're not good at fixing them, the first time you get them fixed, have your mechanic put in a little gas filter. It will save you a
Yep.
lot of trouble.
The other thing I want to bring up about generators is bonding. This is a very, very important subject because if it is not set up correctly, you can cause a whole host of issues in your house. So if you are doing home backup, you do not want to bond on your generator. And a lot of them come from the factory. Neutral and ground are bonded. You want it not to be bonded if it is connecting to your house, because you're automatically bonding at your service panel or for first point of disconnect. In which then, if you have double bonding, you have all sorts of weird lights flickering on and off, appliances letting out the
TFIs
magic
popping when they're
smoke.
not supposed to.
Yep, all kinds of craziness. The only time that a generator should be bonded is if you're plugging a load directly into it, but not a house. So that's something really important, because you can have that generator that was sitting in the box for years that you pull out, and you happen to have that 5-gallon thing of gas that is, the gas is still
3 years
kind of
old.
works, and you put it in there and you plug it in, and I'm good. And then you just fried your electrical system of a bunch of stuff in your house. That's a bad day.
Yeah, and some of those electrical systems and those air conditioners, there was one that I had back in Texas, and it was a $900 circuit board.
Oh,
$900. Boom. Only takes
could you
once like that.
could you imagine if you have an older system that's like 15, 20 years old and it worked, and you fried the board on it, and you're on eBay, you're on all these different HVAC sites, and you can't find the board. Now you got to spend
I
15
went
grand for a new system because you plugged
I
the generator in.
I went to a fair one time with an espresso machine, and the fair had said, "Oh yeah, we've got power, no problem." So went there not thinking about the fact that they run one of those big 50 kilowatt diesel generators. So they have like 3 of those planted all over the fair. And
Hmm.
I had, one of the I just had one of the twist lock, the 3-phase twist lock, red, blue, green things that converts to a 50 amp thing. Didn't think anything of it,
Hmm.
plugged into it. Never even bothered to check distortion levels or anything like that. And the next day, I'm on the phone with France trying to order a $900 circuit board for my espresso machine because it burned it out. And now I have no proof that it was that. I mean, it was a really bad fair. It was humid. It was a lot of things, but the board had the coating on it, so I don't think it was the humidity. I think it was the bad power, but
Yeah.
there's no way to know. But the simple fact is now, I do exactly the opposite. I never plug the generator directly in. I always go through something else like a charge inverter or or back into my batteries and then out through my good, safe, clean inverters.
Now, on your generator, when you plug that in and it's going into the charge inverter, you have it bonded on the generator, right? Because there is no disconnect and you're
Yeah.
just basically plugging it right into the charge inverter. Okay.
Yes, and that, and in like a case of like a food trailer or something like that, that would be plugged into a normal power supply that would be bonded. The only time that I ran into problems with it obviously, if you're going to plug it into your house directly, that's one issue. You gotta go into the generator and figure out how to unbond it, which is usually just a wire you disconnect.
Right.
But the other I've ran into, there are occasionally places where I've gone to for fairs where they have power supplies that are unbonded. They're made to be plugged into like they look like RV parks, but they're not. They're RV, they're homes, they're park home places that just haven't ever had houses put on them, and those
Right.
they expect to be bonded at the panel of the house when the house is installed. So they're not bonded because they're straight from the grid. And so you end up with them not being bonded, and you end up with kind of weird, goofy things happening and stuff like that on those when
Well,
they don't get bonded.
yeah, because you can have current go down your ground.
Yeah, yeah. And in a place like an RV or something, not an well, and yeah, an RV or a food trailer or something like that. A lot of the times your ground your ground or your neutral is the frame. And so it's very important that you get that grounding right, because that power
Yeah.
coming back through the wrong devices is just bad news. Coming back the wrong path.
Give a little zap.
All right. So that was number one. I think we only went to one. Fuel storage problems. Tell me a little bit about what you think of fuel storage. Obviously, gas is the worst, diesel's better, propane's better, natural gas is better. What is
So I like gas, and I put stable in the cans to make sure that the gas doesn't go bad in a short time. Diesel is good, but those generators are usually pretty big, and it's kind of overkill for what I would need. Natural gas is good, but when you have a larger tank, you have to have someone come out to the property and fill it. The only question I would have on natural gas is the person that has it, are they checking the gas levels to make sure at all times they have enough? Like, is there a gauge and you're looking at the gauge and checking it a couple times a year? Or, what are you doing to ensure that you don't have a leak somewhere, or, you ran it low in the last storm and you didn't realize how low that it actually was, and now you go to use it and there's not much there. Those
a
types
lot
of
of
things, because if you have a big tank, you think, I'm good, I have this big tank, so it's unlimited.
Yeah, and a lot of the big tank ones, like the propane ones and that kind of stuff is one thing, but a lot of your natural gas are especially up north. Some places like Texas, you find it in a lot of places, but even in very bad weather, you will still have natural gas lines. They don't,
Oh, I'm,
unless you're
I'm
in
thinking of
earthquake areas.
propane tanks. My
Yeah,
bad.
you're thinking of
I was
propane. So
thinking
propane,
propane.
you're absolutely right. And they do have, the nice thing about propane these days is they have little sensors that you can actually place on the bottom of the tank. And it feeds right into like your home assistant or to an app on your phone, and it'll tell you the levels of them. And they're extremely accurate. I can't even
Oh, nice.
believe the accuracy level.
Yeah, so let's unpack it. So if you have natural gas and there's a regional power outage, how long is the natural gas there until it gets cut off? Like, how long does it stay for? The
For
the ability to
natural
feed it or supply it to you.
for natural gas,
Yeah, so let's just say you've got gas coming to your house for your furnace, and
I
you're also
have
teeing it off to
never
run your generator.
I have never seen a case where natural gas is bad.
But don't
Okay.
they have to have some sort of a pump or something to get it to
Yes. Oh
you?
yeah. No, it's like water, but the difference is that the natural gas is naturally it's it natural gas, if I remember, and I could be wrong on this. I'm assuming it's stored in a liquid form and is self um, pressurizing, which would make it very
Okay.
natural. But now you also got to remember with natural gas, you end up with one of the downsides to it is an extremely cold weather. Now this used to be true in Texas a lot. In extremely cold weather, if the natural gas lines aren't buried like water lines, they don't freeze, but the pressure will drop.
The pressure
And so,
drops.
yeah. And so what they would do in Texas, this is in like the DFW area, if it got down into, because it didn't happen very often, if it got down into like the 14, the 10, 12, 15, 14, 15 degrees, they would actually close the schools, not because of the cold weather. They would close the schools because they were all heated with natural gas, and it balanced the systems to allow all the homes to have enough pressure to operate. But up
Okay.
north, they don't have this problem because they're prepared for it. But it is different from water in that aspect, but it's also, and I don't know how they handle this in a case of like California or something like that, but every place that I've seen, even here on down in one of the stores I had down in Cocoa Beach, they had natural gas lines that coming in. And if you're gonna during a hurricane, even gas would run even during a hurricane. I've never seen natural gas when I lived any house I've ever been. I've never seen natural gas go out.
So you brought up something interesting, California. So if there's a wildfire, they're cutting off the power and they're cutting off the gas.
So that's what Donald is saying here. Natural gas issue is the substation uses AC power to run its valves. And so that
Yeah.
means it's very similar to the same problem that you're
Cell
going to
phone
have
towers.
with your cell phone towers, your internet routers. You're going to have a couple of days of battery. And I'm hoping that a lot of these companies are upgrading to more substantial backup type systems. But they've worked this long, I guess they would. Thanks, Donald. Because I really didn't know enough about it to know that. I would have just assumed, but they use it for valves. Hmm.
I was figuring there had to have been something to it that it can't just go completely without electricity. Okay, so it says natural gas isn't perfect. They may shut off when pressure gets low or someone hits a pipe. Ah,
Yeah, and I wonder if I guess in certain places I got to be the one thing that caught me off guard when I moved here to Florida is that a lot of the water pipes and the gas pipes are above ground, and in Texas they were all buried.
right.
And that's just because it never gets cold enough for them to freeze here, so there's no reason for them to all be underground. But you'll drive by, commercial places, and the water pipes will come up out of the ground, have a meter on them, and go back down into the ground just so that they're out at the street. They could easily go by and read them. But in Texas, that would all be buried underground, where they would have to come by and dig down into it to keep them from getting too cold. But I guess in New Mexico, no, that's Maine. Is that Maine or New Mexico? Right, it's too small. Looks like Maine. So that's probably pressure getting low from cold, would be my guess. Pressure about negative 44. Gas loses pressure at negative 44. Oof. Yeah, I don't think it wasn't that, didn't have to get that low. I guess it loses significant pressure at negative 44. On 250-gallon propane tank have mechanical liquid level indicators.
That makes sense.
Oh, they have mechanical liquid
But
indicators.
the person's got to check it. You know what I mean? It's just like gasoline. Do you have your gas cans filled? Do you have, hopefully someone
Yeah,
would,
like
would have the sense to check it.
I guess with any backup system, you're going to have fuel, you're going to have gas, you're going to have diesel, you're going to have propane, you're going to have whatever you're going to have. You're going to have to check it. If you're going to be that oblivious to it, then you're probably going to end up. But most people that I've seen that are doing something like that, they use the propane for other things. So that's not only
Right.
their backup generator, it's also their stove or their heater or their furnace or whatever it happens to be. So that becomes just a part of their backup. I lost natural gas during Hurricane Michael in Panama City, in Panama.
Wow.
And was that
Yeah.
the Panama City? I don't remember how bad that was. But either way, so I stand corrected. Sounds like a lot of people have had it go out. Only time I had ever seen it, maybe that was just because I was in Texas and I wasn't dealing with hurricanes, and I haven't really had to deal with it here in Florida either. And we didn't have cold weather there very often. And they, like I said, they solved it by just closing the schools down, which was cool. I was okay with that. I was younger. All right. Where were we at? All right. So fuel storage problems. I don't really have too much trouble with the noise. That was the next one on my list. The one I have the problem with is the danger of a generator running and people not paying close enough attention to it. And a lot of people don't realize the fumes that come out of that, some of that crap you smell, but the stuff that kills you, you can't smell. And it gets in your house, it gets in your cars, it gets in your trailers, it gets everywhere. And if you don't actually have that generator parked in a way, good distance away from your house where the wind is blowing away, consistently blowing away from your house and blowing away from your neighbor's house, and your house not in the path of your neighbor's generator, and you get into a hurricane situation like, a few years ago when we had here where everybody was running their generator for the first couple of days, the ideal thing is you got to go out and where did your neighbor put his generator in addition to where did you put yours? Because those gases, they get 15, 20 feet away from those things and they're hitting your house. You won't smell them anymore because the gas that stinks that you're smelling is different from the gas that's killing you. It's too.
I'll give an example. So in my shop, I've got a metal shop, and I'll burn leaf litter, some cardboard, things like that, and I got a burn barrel, and it's about 10 feet from the shop. And you kick that thing off, there's smoke that gets inside the shop. It finds its way in, and you can smell it. And I'll just kind of, if I'm doing something like that, I won't be in the shop just because you'll see just a little bit of a haze and you can smell it. And it's worse for a generator because a generator is, you may not really notice it, that carbon monoxide. And if it's 10 feet from your house, and especially if it's pointed at the house, it's going to seep in.
And a lot of people don't realize that those the two fumes are completely different. They have different weights. They sink differently. They rise differently. I know in the RV I was really big on having the detectors and stuff like that simply because of it. But if you're going to be running them, make sure that you get them. But on the most important thing on those for all of those type of things, especially if you're burning the natural gas or the propane or whatnot, is they can't be attached to your fire extinguisher 10, 15 feet off the ceiling. By the time that one goes off from carbon monoxide poisoning, you won't be alive. It won't matter anymore. Those have to be mounted low. They have to be mounted very, very low because that gas will settle down and take you out really quick. But that's the one thing that I have. A lot of people have problems with the noise. And my thoughts are the noise is just an alert to say, hey, pay attention to where everybody's got their generators, because if that stuff's getting in your house, you won't smell it. A lot of the times you won't smell it. I'm not saying you won't ever, but you won't all the time.
The other thing too is you're in a power outage situation. It's been out a couple of days and not everybody's on the up and up. So I hear this generator, but I have no power and my fridge isn't staying cold. But I hear this generator at 3 a.m. You got to worry about someone using a 5-finger discount and grabbing your generator. That's the other negative about a generator is,
hey,
someone
I got a generator, come get it.
Exactly. In a situation, the silent house that doesn't have the exterior lights on and you have blackout curtains, you're doing okay.
The big thing is you got to get one of the really big generators and bolt it down so that it's so heavy they can't take it with them.
A good point. Those diesels, yeah, you're not
Yeah.
moving them.
Yeah, I wish Average Joe had been here because have you seen that one he's got? That
It's a
old,
monster. Yeah.
yeah, that's an old military one. I assume it's a diesel, so
Oh,
that's
yeah, it looked
that
like it.
that's a big monstrosity. Probably not much bigger than one of those little portable 9,000-watt ones now, anyway, either.
Oh, and that brings up something else. Let's say that you're in a scenario that you don't have a generator, you've got no power, power's been out. You can take a small inverter and connect it to your battery with your car running and get a small amount of output, and that can power some lights. May or may not be able to cover your fridge depending on the size of the alternator, but if you're in a pinch and you need some lights and you don't have a generator or anything else, or your generator because you never started it isn't working, if you have one of those smaller ones, you can connect it to your battery, plug some things in, have the vehicle running, preferably not inside the garage, and get a little bit of juice off of that.
Yeah, and the thing to remember about doing that too is to be really careful with it because you think you're running your car. Your car is going to burn an absorbent amount of fuel compared to a generator
Yeah.
generating the same amount of power. But in
Yeah.
a pinch, the
Yep.
key thing to remember here in a pinch, in a hurricane scenario, keeping a deep freeze frozen, if you don't open it, they can last
Don't open it.
usually good 20, 24 hours. And you can only
Yeah.
need to run them an hour or so a day. So if you had a car and you were in a pinch, you literally could run your car, get that thing charged up and once a day, and you'd be okay. I used to know this guy that lived out in the middle of the boonies, and that's exactly all he did. That was his whole refrigeration was big freezer, and he would once a day he'd turn on a generator, let it run for an hour, hour and a half, and then shut it off. Everything he had was stored in that freezer. Did it for years. Wow. But those things are enormously efficient. All
Yeah.
right. Go through some of these real quick because there's a lot more of them here than I was looking at. My RV, I put in weight sensor connected to the Andredo. Let me know how much liquid propane I have left. Small display in the kitchen. Yeah, those things are really cool. I didn't realize they had them for the liquids, the weight sensors though, for your propane. I've seen the automatic ones that you just connect to it and they connect up that way. I'll have to look at that. I love those little ESP32 connection things. Those are fun. The shelter I was managing had both natural gas and diesel generator. Thank goodness we had a 500-gallon. Whoa. 500 gallons.
Wow, 500 gallons.
Wow. That is a lot. That is a lot. That gives you an idea of what it would take, though, to run a generator full time and for a couple of weeks. Everybody has how many gas cans you have to fill up and put in your backyard. It's only 100 5-gallon gas cans. No big deal. Go ahead and go get them. It cost you $2,000 just for the gas cans. During Hurricane Milton here in the Gulf Coast, so many people had generators running in their driveway and the garage doors were open. Yeah, really dumb. I saw it. I saw it here. People would open up the door to their garage, the door, not the garage door, just the door, and set it 2 feet outside and turn it on. And I was like,
oh, jeez. That's stupid.
it's like, yeah, it's stupid. Just get that thing away. My perimeter gates have contact sensors on them with 3 ultra bright LEDs. Never came on yet. Fingers crossed. Yeah, let's hope not. Let's hope they never do. I've got one out in my front driveway that does the same thing. It's like whoosh, someone walks by my vehicle. And one night there was this, I don't know what it was. I think it was a possum. It was like walking across the hood of my car, and all I saw was that light came on. The camera caught it for just a second, and it was shot out like a light. Still not sure what it was.
I've got to leave just the lights on. I can't do motion lights because I have a lot of deer on my property. When I say a lot, it's a daily occurrence around my cameras. And they'll be 10 feet from the house, 15 feet from the house, walking around the pool, doing this, doing that. And it's just they always set off, the system. So we just have the lights just fixed on at nighttime just because, you know.
Yeah, no other way around it. Makes you wonder if some AI devices would be smart enough now to actually do person detection as opposed to just large animal detection. They're getting to that point now. Hey, Jeff, good evening.
Hey, Jeff.
All right, so where were we? Lost in the generator somewhere. Generators. Maintenance. I think we talked a little bit about maintenance. You don't do your maintenance. You don't run your generators. You don't test your generators. You really don't have any generators.
Right. Change
Carbon
your oil
monoxide
once a
safety,
year.
we took care of that one.
Change your oil, change the spark plug.
And then obviously I got one listed here for the hybrid approach, using your generators, your battery, and your solar all together. I think that's the ideal situation.
Yep.
It's having your generator be able to charge your batteries. You can use your generators, your most efficient methods and stuff like that. But I think that's pretty good for all right, let's talk about some mistakes that people make. I'll bring up a couple and we can talk about it a little bit. I got a list of them here so we wouldn't have to think too hard, because sometimes coming up with them on the spot and then afterwards you're like, I forgot that one.
So mistake number one, plugging your generator into an outlet and backfeeding the grid.
Yes. And that can cause some serious damage to a lot of things. First of all, your generator.
Kill a lineman.
You can kill a lineman
with it.
Most likely you wouldn't. I mean, I'm not saying that it isn't dangerous to linemen. Please don't misunderstand me. What I'm saying, though, is most likely it wouldn't. Here's what's most likely going to happen. That lineman's going to climb that pole, and he's going to hook a wire onto this side, wire onto that side, and he's going to go ground. And your generator's going to go boom and shut off because it just got dead shorted. That's probably what's going to happen in most places. And then you're going to try to restart it, and it's going to boom and short out again, and he's going to do some serious damage to your generator. And then, while you're not watching, here in 10 or 15 minutes, he's going to fix the grid and turn it back on and backfeed your generator and shoot it through the roof. That's what's going to end up happening. Worst case scenario, you're going to hurt a lineman, but best case scenario, you're going to damage the generator permanently.
Yeah.
All right, so here is one that I think is probably one of the most common mistakes, and we probably already covered it, but I'm just going to mention it again because it's really, really waiting until the storm's here. I think we talked about that one a little bit. The biggest mistake people have is, oh, well, yeah, I bought a generator. It's in the garage in the box, and if the storm gets here, I'm going to take it out and use it. You won't have the right wires to hook it up. You'll plug in your refrigerator like I did, and it'll pop the GFI 16 times, and you won't be able to run it. You won't have enough gas. How many other things can you come up with that will?
I've got one.
It won't start.
Hurricane is coming. I've called all the Home Depots, and they're all out of generators.
Yep. You waited till the last minute till the storm was coming, and I called them all, and nobody has one. But the good news is the guy on Craigslist has one for $10,000 that he paid $1,500 for 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Not testing your system. That's the second one on the list. I think we hammered that one home pretty well already. We won't visit it again, but please test your system. Make sure it works. Buying a generator that's too small. I see this one all the time, and this goes for power stations also. If you are blindly buying a generator because some guy on TV told you it was going to run your refrigerator, you're blindly buying a generator in Harbor Freight because the salesman told you, yeah, this one will take care of you. probably are going to be very disappointed when the storm gets here, because you're not going to be able to power enough to really do anything. Go ahead, Mike.
If I could mention one thing, don't get your power station from Harbor Freight. They're extremely overpriced, and um, they haven't tested out as well as like the Blue Eddies and some of the other more established names. So they make great generators. The Predators are awesome, but their portable power stations they're kind of behind the curve right now.
Yeah, they definitely are. Okay. Forgetting when you're buying a generator, forgetting about startup surge. That one's really big. It is really easy to look at a refrigerator and say, oh, it's going to run on 2 amps and it's 120 volts, so that's 240 watts. And you're like, okay, great, that's going to happen. And you buy some, 1,000-watt generator or something like that. Usually you end up with two problems. One is it can't handle it starting up, or you think, oh, it's going to run 2 refrigerators. And what ends up happening is in the middle of the night, they both start at the same time, shut the power station or the generator off because of an overload, and then it just sits there until you wake up the next morning and your whole refrigerator's thawed out.
But the other thing too is a lot of the newer refrigerators have electronics in them. The old school ones didn't. So if you have a generator that's too small and it can barely handle that startup, well, you might find the next day that, hey, the generator's still running, but why is the fridge not on? Oh, you fried out the board and now you got to get a new fridge. So yeah, don't undersize it, you know, because you can because the thing is, whenever that a generator starts hitting max output, it distorts the signal quite a bit, especially with modified sine wave, um, and that can take out the electronics on the fridge.
Yeah. All right. Can't you set camera to trigger with no animals like? Yeah, I don't know. Not all the cameras have that. I mentioned the UI, the AI, so they're starting to put that intelligence in there where they actually are smart enough to recognize human figures. But I could see where I would get frustrated too and just turn it off. I got dual fuel inverter because I got tired of messing with gas, even ethanol-free gas. Ooh, yeah, I
Yeah.
would too. I'm going to try the test I'm going to do next week on my generators. And I've got a little, I've got one that's dual fuel. Actually, it's tri-fuel, but I'm going to try it with both a tank of gas and a tank of propane. Maybe do comparable price, gas versus propane, see which ends up giving me more bang for my buck. I imagine gas will probably end up winning, but it'll be interesting
Right.
to see because propane is extremely convenient. And it's great for great thing for backup disaster recovery is a barbecue grill that runs on gas because it is super easy to cook long term. You can go days and days and days and days and weeks on a tank of propane cooking. Okay. I like the 24 eco-worthy to have like mats with a 24 volt. Yeah. Yeah, it does. That one works really well. That eco-worthy one you're talking about, that charger little portable one that I have. I pound the crud out of that thing, and it still keeps kicking. It also has the ability to have some solar panels hooked up to it too, so that's kind of nice. Big mistake is when people shop for generators. They see 10 kilowatt hours. They don't realize that the surge rating, not constant run at 7 kilowatts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do. And a lot of those generators companies intentionally are deceiving that way, I think.
Well, a lot of the foreign made ones as well, especially when they put numbers into it that are a fallacy. They're inflating the numbers and they're saying it can do this and it can do that, and
I
it's not always
questioned
the case.
one time on where they came up with the calculations. I was doing a review, and I don't even remember what it was for. I don't remember if it was an inverter or a generator. It's been a long time. But They actually told me that what they did is they took the device's rating stickers and added them up, not actually what the device did. And so they based, and let's say it was a generator, and they had a sticker that said it had surge that was 10 amps, when in reality it was only 4 amps. And they used all of those added together to report this astronomical number, but they didn't actually test what the surge of their inverter was. They reported what the devices had said that their maximum was, not what they actually could produce. It was just crazy.
Well, it's like car audio. You see an amp for 159 that puts out 10,000 watts, and you're connecting up to it, 16 gauge wire power, and you're like, how are you getting? Yeah.
I had a friend of mine that helped me. I was rewiring. I don't remember what it was. Something in the RV when I'd gone up to visit some friends in Rhode Island, and we're in an RV park, and I'm rewiring something. I didn't like the way I had done it the first time. I wasn't comfortable with it, and he's like, "Oh, we'll just put these connectors on." I'm like, "No, like you can't do that." He's like, "Well, I do it all the time." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's for your car stereo, and I'm sorry, I'm not sleeping with that underneath me in my RV." He's like, "Well, but it's like 80 amp speaker." And I'm like, "I don't care. This is like only 18 amps, but it's 18 amps. It's gonna burn the place down around me."
Yeah.
Hurt his feelings, but I was like, "No, I can't do it. Sorry. You're watching. Sorry." Um, if, or excuse me, I'll use it at night if needed. And it does nice for walking and playing away from home. Jeff, where are we? Oh, there we are. That's based on that thing. Yeah, it does. It is extremely convenient and portable, and easy to move around. I use it on my test station. When my test batteries get all charged up, I just use it to drain from the charge converter into the other one, and I burn that thing full steam for 5, 6, 8, 10 hours sometimes, right in a row, 2, 3 times a week, as a matter of fact. And that thing is still pumping it out. It's a good little device. It seems a little fragile when I first got it. I thought I was gonna have problems with the plugs and stuff. And I had one plug that popped off, and I opened it up and fixed it, and I haven't had any problems with it since. And I don't know if that's because Jeff, have you had any problems with yours with the ports when you plug things in, them popping out or anything? Other than that, I've had a really good luck with it. It's been a really good device. My fallback for cooking is go to the backyard and open up the RV. Well, yeah, the RV
Yep.
is the ideal situation. Yeah, mine's just down the street at a friend's house now too, so that would be my out also. Disappear over there. Matt, can I wire a Peach 390 watt solar panel into each of the 2 panel inputs of the EX unit? Oh, you're talking about into that thing. It's got a 60-volt maximum, so I would bet if you put them in parallel, but really gonna need to see the specs on the panel, because it
I've
depends on
actually
the
got
volt.
those panels, the URI Peaches. Those are good panels.
Do you happen to know what the open voltage is on it?
It's 30
It's not going
something.
to be under 30. It's not one of those
Yeah,
24
no,
or
it's
18-volt ones, is it?
mid to high 30s. You can put them in parallel. I won't put them in
Yeah.
series though if you got 60 volts max.
Yeah, it's a 60-volt match, so you're going to have to put them in parallel. But it should work fine that way. I did 2 of those used panels at 30, 32, 34, 36 volts, and that worked just fine on it.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think I even tried it one time with hooking 6 of them up just to see what it would do. It just like whoop, maxed out and just sat there. It didn't hurt it at all. I was trying to break it, but it didn't want to break. Yes, I knew what you meant. Felix, I have a Predator 9500 working power generator with over 225 hours. I replaced the factory spark plug with an
Iridium
hour
version.
It seems to be holding up well. Did you see any difference when you replaced it with the spark plug? Did it make much of a difference? I think mine's approaching 300 or 400 hours, and to be honest with you, I haven't touched the spark plug. I do the oil change a couple times a year, and she's not using it much for the food trailer anymore, so I'll probably do it one more time. But I was thinking about possibly doing the spark plug this year, but I never noticed it really having any problems, so I haven't messed with it. But I probably should. Used it only a few times, but no issues yet. Good. The only one I would say be careful with, Jeff, is on those little plugs for the solar panels. When I pushed them in the first time, I like to push things in, make sure they're plugged in really good. I pushed them in and they popped right in. The little screw on the back of that is not very good quality. I wrote EcoWorthy and asked them to fix it. So hopefully, maybe on the newer systems they've got it corrected. But it did kind of pop loose. Now it was easy to fix. You just pull that cover off, and I just put in a little bit bigger screw, and that solved it altogether. But all right, caught up on that. Was a lot more messages than I thought. All right, let's get back to mistakes. Buying too small. We talked about that. Forgetting to start up surge. We talked about that. Not having enough charging ability. Now I've ran into this one myself. I went to, I don't remember where I was. I'm probably in Maryland, based on the park I was at, and I can't remember. It was on some beach somewhere, and I think it was Maryland. And I just brought my small generator with me, and it got really hot, and I was operating in like a casino where there was like no grid or anything. And I thought, no big deal. I'll just use the little one. And what I didn't realize is that even using the little one, it was going to take me forever to charge my battery. And then when the day came, it was fighting backwards because the air conditioners were running, and so it would go backwards during the day, and then at night it would get caught up, but I couldn't leave the generator running all the time like that. They have a lot of rules and stuff. So it's happened to me before where you don't consider what you can actually charge and if it's going to be enough to compensate for it. Because it caught me off guard that time. I actually had to make some accommodations for it. And I think that's where I got the dirt in that damn generator too. I'm pretty sure that's where it happened, because it was right after that thing started acting up on me. You had any problems with capacity of charging?
No, so the generator that I have, it's like 12,000 watts, 13,000 watts. And all that I've used it for, I mean, it's not connected to my charge inverter yet. What I had is, and this is before I had all the solar and all that, I would have like 2 or 3 100-foot extension cords that were 14 gauge, and it was mainly just to plug lights on and laptops in and stuff like that. So when the power went out, keep the fridge going, keep this, keep that. They probably should have been 10 gauge, to be honest, because of the voltage drop, but I didn't know as much about voltage drop then.
Yeah. Well, and if it worked, I mean, yeah, it cost you a little bit of power to do it, and the amperage goes up a little bit. But if it worked, it worked. I mean, sometimes you do
Right.
stupid things to get through emergencies, and
Yeah.
it's one thing to run it like that all the time. But if you're using a 100-foot extension cord all the time, then you got bigger problems.
Yep.
Extension cords are supposed to be temporary emergency solutions, not long-term solutions.
Yep.
Not enough charging ability, no transfer plan. And I think
That
what they
goes
mean,
back to what we were talking about before. Don't backfeed.
don't backbeat.
Understand, transfer switch, interlock, have something set up, preferably ahead of time. You don't necessarily want to do this during the storm because you're going to cut corners. And all of us have seen DIY stuff to where It's funny because I saw one this week. It was on Facebook, in the forums, and a person has an inverter and a couple of floor standing batteries and just this rat's nest of wires, and I haven't seen anything
I
like it.
saw it
It's
too.
Yeah, it was almost like um, when you go online and you go to look at electrical in India and you see
Yeah.
like 1,000 wires all crisscrossing up there, and people are just twisting things together with a pair of pliers to make a connection, and you're just like, holy crap, someone's getting electrocuted. But I'm looking at the guy's thing and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to burn your house down. Um, but don't do that. Plan ahead of time. If you have to wire it up during the emergency, it means you didn't prepare. I'm not saying don't do it during the emergency, because if you need to, you need to, but at least look at it and say, okay, if I do it this way, what's the chance my house is going to burn down? Okay, there's a decent chance. All right, maybe I shouldn't do it that way. Um, just saying.
Yeah, I saw a couple of those this week. I remember the first one I showed to my wife. Actually, I think the first one was on YouTube. It was some lady saying, "Well, my system failed on me," and she showed this picture of her, and behind her was just this rat's nest of wires running everywhere. My inverter shut off, and it failed, and I'm like looking at it going, and how are you going to figure out what failed? Just kind of like looking at and then that Facebook one that you're talking about, I imagine it
You
was
know
the
what I'm
same
talking
one.
about.
It showed up, and I like turned to my wife and I said, you know, I thought I was never going to see one outdone that one that I showed you the other day, but here it is 2 days later, and it's been outdone. I showed it to her. She's like, oh, that's scary.
So he just okay, so like drywall ceiling and walls. So the drywall ceiling, he just drilled like a half-inch hole, and he's just wires are going up to the solar, to the solar panels.
Yep.
Nothing's in conduit. And in mine, I'm going to be redoing mine. I got conduit boxes. I mean, we should always be improving our systems over time. But I'm looking at it. I'm like, you're going to burn your house down. And I saw another one, and this was a YouTube video. A nice guy, nice, pretty little wife, pretty little baby. Baby was year old, and I'll probably sub to the guy's channel. Looked like a very nice guy, and he's got the panels on the roof, but he's got an inverter, and I think it was 7 15 kilowatt batteries inside his house. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, if that kicks off, that's a lot of power inside your house. And I'm not saying people shouldn't put, batteries in like a garage or something like that, but it was in like the laundry room because the hot water tank was in the same room as it. But I'm just like, man, you got a pretty little family. If that thing lets the magic smoke out of something, that house that pretty little family's in. I just saw it, and that was my immediate thought is, because he's happy that it's on. His wife is just ecstatic. She's holding the baby that's about a year old, and I'm just like, I hope to God that nothing goes wrong,
Yeah.
because inside the house with all that,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
it it it's good to see that they're changing a lot of what's going on with the industry and moving a lot of this to outside stuff, and that prevents a lot of the venting problems, and it prevents a lot of other issues. But like you said, it's still kind of scary when you see, and I've got this one viewer that wrote me one time, and he's got this RV that has these the batteries mounted underneath his bed in his RV. And you saw it there for a while. It was really popular where they were mounting the batteries with the lift up bed, and they would put the batteries
Right.
underneath and everything. And I had to call in the other day, and I'm like, look, you really have to consider you really have to consider taking out those four 280 amp hour Battleborn battery game changers from underneath your seat.
Oh man.
And I'm trying to tell him as politely as I can, look, dude, these batteries are not safe. You're gonna have to change them, or and how do you say that? Because he's put so much into this thing. It's he just put in all new solar panels on the roof. He put in 2 Victron Quattro 5000 for split phase power into it. I mean, this is like he's got this huge system, but he's got those 4 game changer Battleborn batteries. And I'm just like, dude, those are
Something he could do and potentially keep it there, potentially, is
take
if
all
he
the cells
was
out of the battery and rebuild
no,
them.
no, no. What he could do potentially is if you can get the bed to close and seal really well, say have some sort of a way to
Get
seal
it
it
to
in,
vent.
have a big old vent that goes straight across and outside. So if those cells start to vent for some reason, it's going straight out. If there was such a way, and I don't know how you would
There,
seal the top and do it, but
and it really, even the venting is one of the fears, but the fear that
the
I've saw
fire.
recently is now the popping up of those melting. Have you seen how those are melting as opposed to just the 12-volt ones where you have that one side that collapse? These have that whole intersection where the positive and negatives are like 3
Yep.
inches apart from each other. And I'm just like, oh, dude, you've got to, I hate to say it, but you
Yeah,
got
I
to throw
mean,
away that $5,000 worth of batteries and replace them, dude.
I don't want to get us in trouble, but I will say, if anybody has those batteries, do your research, and I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, it, yeah, definitely do. Definitely do your research and think about what you're doing because they're just
I don't want us to get
anyway.
in trouble.
Yeah, well, maybe already too late for that, but hey, what can you do? All right, so the next couple of items that we've already covered on this, but this one is really important that I want to get to because this is probably one of the easiest things to fix and the most silly thing that happens, and I've seen it happen all the time, and I've yet to ever go to an RV, what do you want to call it, festival or get together or whatnot, and not had this happen to at least one person there. But please, 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 if you're going to have a solar system, have a backup fuse, have a couple of backup fuse, a couple of backup cables, a couple of backup breakers, adapters, simple things. For example, the adapter that even if you're plugging it into a port outside, if that adapter goes out or it melts or you overstress it too much, you lose your whole system. And it's not because you don't have a generator. It's not because you don't have the port on your house. It's because you don't have a little cord to connect them.
I've got one for you. 30 amp 120 off a pedestal. Make sure you check the polarity, that they don't have it wired backwards.
Yep. All right. So make sure you have extra cables, important cables, and wall plugs, and things like that, fuses, breakers, adapters, whatever you need from there, because that is number one. I have never been to a festival of any kind with a significant amount of RVs where somebody doesn't say, "Hey, do you have an extra A&L fuse, or an extra T-class fuse, or an extra this fuse, or an extra that fuse, or an extra cable, or an extra adapter?" It happens every time, every single
Yep.
time. Next big mistake that we see is knowing what your system can actually run, and this, in my opinion, comes down to testing it. It's one thing to say an inverter does something on paper. It's completely different to say it can actually do it. And turning it on and running it for 5 minutes ain't gonna cut it. Just it isn't enough.
As an example, so for my house, When I had the 3 inverters set up, I wanted to ensure that it could fully power the house. I turned everything on. I opened up the faucets so the well pump was running. I turned on the HVAC on heat. I turned on the heat strip so it was an emergency heat. I turned on all the TVs, the lights, the electric dryer, the washer, and the stove. I had everything on, and I was pulling, I think, around 120, 125 amps. And my system can put out 150 continuous. And I wanted to see it, and it did it.
120 is that 120 at 240?
Yeah.
Woo wee! Damn, I would have
Has everything
paid.
on.
I would have paid for tickets to watch that. That would be exciting.
And everything worked.
That's fantastic. Now that's a test. That's a test, guys. That right there is a test. So knowing what your system can run and assuming that if you have a grid-tied system that does not have a battery, you are not going to have power when the power goes out. Period. The end.
Can I bring up one more?
Sure.
Testing your system before that you have that outage, but testing it to make sure that it can run the loads that you think that it can run. So for example, I'll see guys and gals that would pick up a single inverter and they'll have 1 or 2 batteries that are floor standing batteries. And especially when they have one and they don't understand why it's not running the AC, when the inverter says that you need to have 250 amps or 300 amps feeding it for that to happen, which is 2 batteries. Or they'll not understand how long that it lasts. I have these 2 massive batteries, and this guy sold me this, and this is more power than you would ever need. And you run that backup, and 4 hours later, after running all the stuff, 5 hours later, the batteries are dead. Well, how are they dead? These are these monstrosities. The guy said that, okay, you need to make sure that your capacity for your inverter and for your batteries are, and your panels, for what your expectation actually is, that it's sized properly.
And you know, one of the one more thing you made me think of when I was doing it, and this one is part of testing, and that is to know when your system is really going to shut off. And this one I think is really important because a lot of us go in and we set up these systems and we say, okay, this has, 300 amp hours and this has 400 amp hours, and you run it up and you run it down and you get it to 40 and you get it to 50%, but you never find out where the bottom of the gas tank is. And this is kind of like driving your car around and you never figure out where empty is. You don't know. It's not like, it's not like you're driving that Ford from 1978 where when it hit the E line, it was actually empty. Sometimes it runs for an hour more and sometimes it shuts off an hour early. So it's really important, especially when anytime I'm talking with somebody who's looking at a system and they say, well, how long will this last? And I'm like, well, have you actually tried it? Do you know when it shuts off? Is it going to shut off when it tells you it's at 10%, or is it going to shut off at 0? And a lot of the times, I would say 80%, 90% of the times, somewhere between 10 and 30%, they lose their system. I'd say it's really high. Would you agree with that?
It depends on the configuration of it. So like my inverters and voltage, battery voltage, I can have it set whatever. I have mine cutting off at 50 volts and it goes to yellow indicator at 51 volts.
But you know when it's going to shut off. I'm saying
I
that
know
most
exactly
people think
when
that
it's, yep.
whenever it's going to shut off, they think, okay, I got this all the way to 0. And they don't realize that a lot of the times 0 doesn't mean 0.
Right.
0 is 10%, 20% past when your system stops working. And that's not when you want to learn about it during a hurricane.
Well, and the other thing too is that for folks that they don't understand what discharged is, if it's set and configured incorrectly, they could have it go down so low that you brick your batteries and you can never get them fired back up again. And I've done that. I've bricked 2 of my lead time batteries. I had that in one of my videos. And yeah, you can, that's how you damage batteries, is by getting them too low.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, so when I had my 5-year review, or my 1-year review of the 5 inverters, one of the things I mentioned is the 2 lead times that that got bricked. Remember the 24 volts that are in series, and they kind of got in,
Yeah.
a little out of whack, and I bricked.
Oh, because they didn't shut down at a standard voltage. They shut down below the standard voltage. Okay. Yeah.
And
see,
they
the
were off
BMS
too long.
I would hope these days that your BMS would save you from that kind of garbage, because
Well,
that
so what
shouldn't
happens
happen
is,
anymore.
if you have a battery bank and you have a battery that gets too low for one reason or another, if it sits at 0% for a certain amount of time, the cell voltage will get too low to where the BMS faults, and you can never recharge it out of safety. And that's when a battery bricks. Now you can try using a charger to wake it back up, but sometimes it's so low that it won't allow you to do that because
Yeah,
of the
and
safety.
I got lucky with a guy back a few weeks ago. Exactly that had happened. He had 2 banks of 4 batteries, and one was a 220 amp, one was a 200 amp, and one of the batteries in the 200 amp one had gotten completely out of whack and was sitting down at 0. And it would charge back up to about 5%, and then his system would get down to about 50%, and it would shut off. And it was one of the first things I recognized that was going on, is that only half of your battery bank is running because it was so out of balance. But but yeah, that it definitely happens. I've never seen the brick on more modern lithium batteries. Now, some of the older ones, maybe they do, but they should be. The ones I've seen, every time I've seen it lately, and I've got a couple of the lead times, I haven't had one brick on me. I hope they don't, because I'm not going to speak very highly of them if they do. That's what the BMS is there to do, is to
just,
stop that
if
damage.
if the voltage gets too low, and then you still try the special chargers that are made to wake them up, and I have one of them, and the BMS still said fault, and it was the BMS protecting me from trying to charge a cell that shouldn't be charged.
Oh, and I guess what you were saying too is you got them down to 0 and left them there. It wasn't that
And they were down at 0
and
for probably a
then
month
you
or 2.
have that 0
Yeah.
drift that causes it to get way below
Yep.
where it's supposed to be. Okay, that actually
Yep.
makes sense, because the BMS
Yep.
would have shut it down, let's say at 10 volts on a 12 volt battery. But then if it sits there for 3 or 4 or 5 months after that, it could
Yep.
be down at 1 volt, and that's going to prevent it from coming back on. Okay, that actually makes sense.
I'm guessing the cells were way below 2.5, maybe 2.3, 2.4, and you just shouldn't wake it up at that point.
Yeah, it would have to be in really bad shape. All right. If you were doing your system again today, what would you change? If you got to start over, got all the money back that you'd spent, and could rebuild it right now.
Oh, that's a question. So the lead time batteries, we already talked about that. I'd go with just 48 volt instead of 24s in series.
Yeah, that's a good one. That really is. Now, I was very fortunate that I went with the 48 volt right off the bat. All my 12s and 24s were afterthoughts and toys and learning experiments and stuff.
I don't know if I would have done too much different. I think it would have been best to have, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. Go through the proper ways of installation. Maybe I should have done that. But at the same point, the inverters that I have it connected to batteries that are not paired to it for UL listing. And for the inverters that I have, I think only the 280 amp hour batteries, and those are no longer made. So if you were to take the off-grid inverters, you could probably never get it permanent at this point, because only the 280 amp hour batteries were mated with that for that special UR listings. I'd have to look up the code, but it ends with an A at the end. So I'm kind of happy with how I did it. I'm in a way happy I didn't do the FlexBoss Grid Boss. It wasn't available at the time, but I think from what I've seen, the 12,000 XP is more reliable. And the most reliable was probably that 18K PV out of all the inverters. So I've done a lot of research on the EG4s over time to see what was the most problem-free. Was actually the 18K PV from all the research that I did with AI to see complaints, things like that. That was probably the most reliable. And then the next one up is the 6,000 and 12,000 XP, with the 12,000 being slightly better.
You think which one's slightly better? The 12,000?
12,000 is slightly more reliable than the 6,000. The 18K PV was the best. The Flex Bosses, the 18 and 21s, there was an issue early on with, I think it was the 18s and the 21s with a DC bus issue. But the 18 Flex Boss had a few more issues than the 21 did, from everything that I've read. So if I would have went the Flex Boss Grid Boss, I would have had the ease of installation, and I could have done everything the right way. But the 12,000 XP is just more reliable. Just like the 6,000 XP are just dead solid for reliability. So even though I have a transfer, or not a transfer switch, an interlock switch that I've got to switch back and forth, and it could be a pain in the butt to do if needed, if you got to switch it back and forth too many times. But I think the 12,000 XP is just, I like the reliability.
Yeah,
So,
and I've got the 6,000 XPs. I think if I was going to redo anything today, if I could redo it all, I would not go grid tied ever again. I would go completely off grid system. I would tie my house grid back into the shed, and I would pull the power back into the house that way, and I would cycle it that way. I don't think I would. I don't. For the cost of the grid tied one, is it works, but there's just no. It was just a huge expense, and I don't see any benefit of it. And then when the power goes out, when the grid goes down, it's still a thing. Now, I could, fake the islanding and get it to go back up if I wanted to reroute and wire everything correctly and all that. But at this point, I'm more worried about the warranty than I am the actual system. The system works,
right.
and I don't want to break the warranty. And now, if it wasn't that, that's exactly what I would do. I would pull that line from the house over into the shed, run it through the off-grid system, and then back into that one and just fake it when there was no grid.
The other issue too is, like, my power goes out once a month, once every other month. It's just pretty bad with that. And I don't trust the cleanliness of the power from the power company, because when your lights are flickering, it means all your devices that are plugged into it, they're flickering. And yeah, I wanted to be completely separate. And that's the cool thing about having a transfer switch or an interlock, is that you separated yourself from the grid. I mean, you're as separate can be. So if there's, a storm and the power is blinking, you're not blinking. You're rock solid because you're on your own system. So that's something else to think about. The other thing too is you can get surges from the grid. I think everybody's familiar with that. You've heard of someone that's had appliance go out or what have you from the grid. So just where I'm at, it's just not that reliable. But when I used to live up north and I had ComEd, I mean that was just rock solid. But my current company is not, not quite as good.
Yeah, they're pretty good here. I mean, we see some flickers here and there, but nothing dramatic that I've really had too much trouble with. But that would be what I would do. I would just go completely off grid. I just like skip them. I'd like do like you're doing. I'd use them as a feed into the and use the automatic transfer within it and forget that thing. Just like I did the RV, which is how I did the RV. When I was at a park, I could plug it in, and if it battery got low, it would use it, and if it didn't, it would do it. And yeah, so I'm going to move on, and we will go down to the next section. What would you do different? What did we do? What did we buy or build that worked better than? There we go. So what we're going to talk about now is what did you buy or build that worked better than expected? And obviously, I'm talking about from a standpoint of disaster type thing. And I think from my perspective of all of the chargers I have tried, that ChargeVerter is still by far the easy win in every way possible. And so the question is I know you had some audio problems and went left and came right back, which nobody noticed but me because I just kind of flipped the screen on them. But so the question is what did you buy or build that worked better than expected? Than what you would have thought it would have done. For me, it's that ChargeVerter. It's just like so universal.
For me, it was so for my shop system, I took the output of the 48-volt battery bank, had that go into bus bars, connecting to MC4 cables with inline fuses, and using that to charge up all my power stations. I love that thing. That's how I charge all my power stations, and that works phenomenally well.
It's funny how you would say that because I did a video on charging one DC system off of another, so I wouldn't have to go through the ChargeVerter to get over to the system. Recently, I've needed to do the opposite because if you're testing like a 12-volt battery or 24-volt battery, or you're testing an inverter or something, you got to charge the batteries up and so I keep plugging it into one solar system to charge another solar system. And I was thinking, this would be so much more efficient if I could just took the 48-volt battery to it. So you used PV wire, and at 48 volt, that makes
charges all
good.
Converted, all power stations, yeah. Because they're all up to 60 volts for the most part.
Yeah, because in my case, I'd be charging either a 24 or a 12-volt system, and I could just, wow, hey, that's a really good idea.
Let me show you something I've been working on. Let me grab it.
I mean, it's kind of the same idea that I did before, except I was worried about how I was going to get the wires and stuff ran over there, but that just using PV wire makes it really easy and inexpensive.
So this is my new battery tester that I'm building, and it should be finished this week. So I'm using 2-gauge wire, so that easily holds 100 amps. And that connects to the battery I'm going to be testing. And then on the inside, I've got a shorter cable coming, which is why this isn't done yet. So let me just remove this cable here real quick so you can see it. But essentially what it does is on the inside, I've got a Victron Smart Shunt, and then and hopefully you can see it, T-class fuse.
Yeah.
And then I have the screen, which would be up on top, and I 3D printed the box. And you might say, okay, what is this going to do? All right, so let's just say that I'm trying to load test the battery. Okay, check the capacity. This connects to the battery. These four outputs, here's my four positive and my four negatives, plug into four different power stations. And then depending on how many power stations I plug into it is how much power is being drawn from the battery. So each one of my power stations, for the most part, at this voltage will pull 600 watts through the MPPT. So I can pull up to 2,400 watts and load test the battery, and it's all going to be on the screen.
That's a great idea.
And the cool thing about it is the reason why I wanted to do it this way is, what is the safest way to load test a battery, capacity test it while you're sleeping? Well, charge your power stations. That's about as safe as you can get, is charging your power stations. And in that way, if the power stations are empty, I can plug them in or low, and between four of them, it's going to absorb all the capacity of like a server rack battery. And then with the power that's used to charge them up, I can run my miners or power something else, instead of what I used in the past as a capacity tester, which wasted it all as heat. Well, now I'm not wasting it as heat. I'm actually capturing the energy so I could use it for something useful, like mining crypto. So
yeah, and the problem I'm running into is the going from the 48 down to the 24, or 48 down to 12. That's fine, because that you can just plug that into a standard charge controller, and you could test the 48 volt batteries pretty easy. And I could even test charging the 12 and the 24 volt batteries with it. It's the discharging of the 12 volts that I'm still, how in the world do you get to pull?
So in that scenario, it won't do well with 12 and 24 volts, because some of my power stations can do the lower voltage, but it's very limited amperage. But
so I just built a little system on the wall with the same shunt, the same setup, but mine just runs through an inverter, and I run it through the charge inverter.
Here's the reason why the other reason why I did it this way, and you're going to laugh. If I connect up a battery to this the way that it sits, and I plug in my power stations into it, do I need a pre-charge resistor?
No.
The answer is no. Because an inverter, you have to worry about the spark, but MPPT, you don't. So every time I go to capacity test a battery with an inverter, if I don't make sure that the caps are fully charged, I could take out the inverter. And with doing so many battery tests, there was a fear over time I would have missed something, or I would have forgotten. Whereas with this, with the MPPT, you never need to have that, because you're never going to have the spark.
You're not going to have the spark on the battery side. Yeah.
Correct.
But you will have the spark. You can still have the spark on the charge side.
No, because it won't. So when you plug in the power stations, the first thing that they're going to do is look at the voltage, and then they're going to start to put a load on it. Just like how, the sun comes out of the clouds.
Yeah, because you're charging that way, direct, not this way.
Because I'm charging.
I'm still thinking. So
right.
This was the problem that I ran into testing an inverter earlier this week, is that I had the shutoff switch between the batteries and the bus. Well, of course, the chargers are connected to the bus. So even though I shut the battery off, I still, when I went to hook the inverter up, I still touched it the first time I got a spark. I'm like, what the hell? How did I do that? But where'd all that juice come from? And then I realized, I still have the charge controllers hooked up, and they were still charging batteries. Like, whoops. So no, on that side you'd still have it, but you're doing it independently of that, just strictly for testing.
Correct.
There's got to be a better way. Although you're building one, there's just got to be a better way for for testing these batteries that's not just a crazy expensive stupid type thing. But I've got the bench all set up now, so I just plug it in, turn it on, and hit the automation, and then it's the Victron shunt tracks all the Home Assistant, and I just see all the history and everything there, which is kind of convenient.
But you got to give me props for it. That was thinking outside the box.
It is. It's very cool, actually. And matter of fact, I've been wanting to put a 48 volt line from my 48 volt, but it's on the other side of the shed from the test bench, and I've been like, how am I gonna? And I didn't want to go to all the trouble, but now I'm thinking, oh well, if it's just PV wire, I can do that. Just run it over there, and still might have to put it in conduit though. I might feel better with it if it was.
For PV, you would, but with this, since it is, I mean, it's a mobile test station. So I can just, and I've got big, massive clamps coming. So I'll have the lug, which then connects to the big clamp. So if I needed just the lug, I could take it off of the clamp and use the lugs. But then I've got the big, beefy clamps that they're made by Spartan. And so I can test, most batteries that way. So I pretty much only test like 48 volt these days. So, it should work out well. But yeah, because I had bought a Heltec unit and I tested like 5 or 6 batteries and it died, and I spent like $650 on it, and I'm like, not doing that again.
Yeah, and I just keep thinking that it like you said, it's just a big expense that just doesn't have any real payout unless you can find some way to make it save you some certain amount of time. But the problem is that the time spent is still the same. You're still still discharging and charging at the same rates. It's just
well, and the other thing too is the capacity testers that I had, it would put it off as heat. So you're wasting all that you used to charge, and it's like, well, I could have wasted it as heat through a Bitcoin miner.
That's kind of the way I look at it. I let the 24 volt one just run all the time, even when I'm not testing, and when the batteries get full, I just put it on the charge. That was why we were talking about earlier, that inverter that I was telling him about. That's what I use it for. I discharge the 24 volt batteries with it straight into the to the charge verter.
Yep.
Well, that's what I would do differently. I'm going to go back to our list here. Did you buy or build that you would not buy or build again? So what worked? We talked about what worked better. So what did you buy or build that you wouldn't do again?
The Heltec tester, and then 24 volt batteries for a 48 volt system. See what else. That's about it. I mean, I could say 48 volt batteries that aren't UL listed, but to be honest, the less expensive DIY ones, none of them were ever UL listed. It's only been over the last 3 to 6 months that you're starting to see EcoWorthy and some others that are UL listed. It used to be you would have to stay with the name brands, and if you're trying to build out a system, it can definitely get up there.
Well, they're just now getting to the point where I've kind of looked at batteries in 3 different tiers recently. Your budget batteries, and they still are lacking the fire suppressions and that kind of stuff that are that second level beyond the 1741 certification. And then you got that middle of the line, and those are now starting to have all the fire suppression and everything, but you still get some of the savings that you would get with the budget batteries, but you're getting that UI listing, and you're getting I don't remember the one that says it works with the inverters now, but the automatic shutoff one. So that's starting to show up on them. And then of course you have the higher end ones that have all of it. But you're looking at a good, almost $600-800 difference between each level. I mean, what is it, about $2,000, $2,500 for the budget battery, 300, let's say 314 amp hour budget 48 volt battery. You're looking at $2,000, $2,500, or 2,800 to 33, 3,400, and then 3,400 to 4,000 for the top of the line ones now.
So I'll give you an example. So if you look at these Vatchers, I've got 18 of them. They don't have fire suppression. They don't have UL listing because
I
a
saw
lot of
your
them back
video for
then.
that for your very
The,
first build on these today. It
yeah.
popped up on my feed. I thought, oh, look at that.
Oh,
He's just
nice.
bought his racks and everything. And sorry,
So
just couldn't help myself.
I know. But like with these, they've got eave cells that are replaceable. They've got the studs on them so you can unbolt them and bolt others in. It's got JK BMS on it. The cells are balanced so well on the inside, much better than my EcoWorthy and other batteries that I've seen. I mean, they're just dead on all
Is
of the
is that
cells.
the is that the cells or is that the JK? Because I've got a DIY a 304 amp hour DIY I built, and I put a JK in there with a 2 amp active amp balancer, and I don't ever see that battery unbalanced. I mean, ever more than a couple hundredths of a millivolt.
That's yeah. I mean, it could be, but I love Eve cells. I absolutely love Eve cells. I I like cells that aren't welded. I like if you have a bad cell in which all of us have had a weak cell or one that's a runner that you can never just everything you do you can't get that one cell. I want to be able to unbolt it and pull it out
Yeah.
and
Or if
replace
something
it.
goes wrong with the whole type thing, just to be able to take it out, use the cells elsewhere, and yeah, and make it useful.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Now,
agreed.
but it's not UL listed. It doesn't have fire suppression. Am I going to keep those long term? Yeah, I'm going to buy fire suppression and put it in. So I'll give an example. So the EG4 server rack batteries, they have two fire suppression pucks in there. Each one, if I remember correctly, is 20 grams of aerosol
Can can we
aerosol that's
just
in
buy
there.
those and add them?
So that's what I'm going to do. I found this one company that I can get 40 grams in a single one that's got dual nozzles. And I'm going to be buying one for each of them. And then I'm going to put two or three in the larger eco-worthy cases because there's so much air room in there. And I'm just going to put them in and just keep those um, long term. But I like the Vatchers much better than those stand-up eco-worthies for sure. But um, but yeah, so it's I don't know where I'm going with this, um, but
We were talking about
some of
things that
those
you wouldn't do again.
yeah, but some of those mid-tier batteries, even if it doesn't have the oil list and everything else, they're damn good batteries.
Yeah. Well, even some of the lower tier ones. I mean, the fire suppression thing wasn't really a thing until it was required by UL, and
Right.
still, I still haven't seen anyone. What I would like to see, and I have some reservations about the effectiveness of that fire suppression. I would like to see someone get one of those batteries to go off and let's see what the fire suppression does. Can it even stop it?
I'd be
And
tempted.
nobody has any answer other than one you just had. I would love to see. Maybe will do it for us.
So I'm going to pick up a few of those and test them. However, I'm not going to test it against a cell going south. The reason why I'm not going to test that is like a 100 amp hour cell puts out so much smoke. I don't want the fire department showing up at my address. Now, Will did do the test, and he's in Nevada, and he's in a suburban type setup, and he did it, and with that fish tank. I don't know if you saw the thing with the fish tank, but that sucker was smoking really bad, and I'd be too scared of the fire department showing up.
Oh,
You know
well,
what I mean?
yeah, no, obviously I would be too, but I'm saying my question becomes not first of all what he had to do to get that thing to go off was,
Yeah.
and it wasn't even until he squirted it with the water, saying, "Okay, I'm done, I give up," that it actually started
Then it
to
started to really kick
that it
off.
started. But if you could get an actual 16 pack, an actual 100 amp hour or 300 amp, if you can get one of those to start, is that fire suppression, is it a joke? Are we fooling ourselves? I mean, it's not like a server room where they have a gas that they release that completely smothers out the fire. Okay, hey, you
Right.
ain't got to prove that one to me. Fire has to have oxygen to breathe. But what is it in there that they're saying is going to stop that meltdown of those cells? Because
So
I haven't heard any
so
effective.
here's the thing. So LFP cells don't create their own oxygen per se. All right. They need oxygen from the environment to burn. All right.
So it's smothering
Um,
it.
it's essentially trying to smother it, but the thing is at the same time, it's off gassing a lot of gas. So that gas is going to then try to leave that case at a rapid pace, which means that aerosol that was sprayed into it is going to most likely dissipate as well, which then it reignites. And that's the big question is, will it reignite?
Are they big enough to be effective?
Right.
Do they actually work? Does it actually extinguish it? And if it was, by the time it went off, would it be like an A&L fuse? By the time it goes off, does it matter anymore, or is it just too far gone? I don't know. It's always a question I've kind of had. I've wondered about the effectiveness of them. If they get started, how are you going to stop them? And that's kind of where I'm still at. But that also implies that if that is the case, then that means that those metal cases, if it starts to melt down that way, can they handle the heat to handle the smothering also? Because if they just crack open and let the magic smoke out, it's just going to reignite and keep going. I
Well,
don't
and
know. It'd be
that's
an interesting set of tests if someone had a nice place to do it. I'm not even sure
you
Will's in a place to test that.
and to set off 100 amp hour server rack battery. I mean, you better have 30, 40 acres, something that,
Well,
you know,
even if he
so,
did it on one, even if he did one cell like he did before and put one of those in there and had it find out like he did what would be a really cool test is the same thing he did for all those breakers. Find out what it takes to set one of those off, and then
yeah,
create that with a cell, and see if it'll put it out. I'm
yeah.
gonna have to send him a note on that. He'll like that idea.
Then no case is going to have a single cell in it. They're all the
No,
only way that you could test. And the other thing too is volume, because the aerosol is dependent on the amount of volume that's in there. So if you just have a single cell in there and the rest is open space, it's going to act differently compared to a full
oh,
server rack.
overdo it. Put 3 or 4 of them in there. I'm
Okay.
still betting that it isn't going to put them out.
I think you
I'm
would
betting
need.
by the time that it gets to the point where that extinguisher goes off, that they're too far gone for it to be enough of a smothering ability. It's kind of like, it's like pouring baking soda on a fire. Yes, it's very effective when the fire's young, but when the fire's raging, you need a lot of baking soda.
Right. Now, there is one way that's proven for LFP batteries, and that is water. So if you have a mist system or some sort of water suppression, that will put it out. That is proven that
It,
that is the best
it
way to
may
do it.
cause another fire, though.
Well, so here's how that you can do it. You have a hydrogen sensor, which then when that goes off, you have it close the circuit and do emergency shutdown. And as that happens, then the sprinklers kick off. You will destroy everything,
Yeah.
but you'd have to have your batteries and your inverter would have to have emergency shutdown. You'd have to be in SOC mode. That would theoretically work, but you're destroying everything. But
Well, but that's assuming that the emergency shutdown remains only SOC type thing. I mean,
Oh, I'll show you something that I haven't done the video on
I
this
mean,
yet.
as nice as the SOC is, I still think we're a few years away from it being 100%.
So
Oh,
don't worry
nice.
about Eddie from Iron Maiden, but see the fire suppression?
Yeah, I see it.
Automatic fire suppression kicks off at 135 degrees. It's ABC. And then I've got another one. Don't worry about the other Eddies. And the other one is, there it is. It's in the corner right there, facing towards the inverters. So yeah, I've got two
Nice.
of them. They're ABC. They're only going to help against a inverter fire, not against a battery issue.
Yeah. But that's about all. That's about the best we could do. And the fact still remains too, as bad as it is, as bad as it's still a fraction of the danger that came from lead acid.
Oh, it's just a fraction of it. The other thing too, and that's a great comment, the hydrogen buildup, hitting
Yeah.
the ignition source is a major issue. So what I'm designing, and it's going to be a bit before it's installed, but what I'm designing is basically this. Hydrogen sensor. The hydrogen sensor picks up, and this is a real hydrogen sensor, not a cheap one, but one that's actually tested and fully certified. It has two relays on it. First relay is going to kick emergency shutdown on all the inverters. You might say, why is that important? Because it cuts the power to the shop. Everything that's powered in the shop goes dead. The second one, what that does is that is going to trigger the fans, because I'm going to have an explosion-proof exhaust fan that is going to evacuate all of the gases, and it's going to be at the peak. And then there's going to be an intake at the very bottom on a different wall. So what it's going to do is it's going to kill the inverters, and then it's also going to power the fan, and it's going to kick all that on. The fan is going to be powered by a power station, which is in a different room of the shop, which is going to be cabled to it by conduits, and that will be always on. So when that hydrogen sensor kicks off, it kills the power. The power station is still on. They'll power the fan for about 6 to 8 hours, and it's going to evacuate everything out and at least give the shop a fighting chance. And you have the ABC fire suppressors, which are going to kick off as well for an inverter fire or any secondary fires.
Yeah, and I took a second. I'll have to show it to you back here in a few months when the temperature out there, and I can actually live stream from back out in the shed again. I took a different route. So I mounted high velocity fans across the top and ejected out the side. And so those just constantly run. Now, if I end up doing something like air conditioning or anything like that out there, then I'm going to have to rethink that. But right now I have enough ventilation out there that it would be hard pressed for any number of batteries to cause a problem out there. With the amount of airflow that's going through there. When you're looking at, 4,000 cubic feet a minute, it would be a lot
It would dilute the heck out of it.
Yeah, it would be so diluted that it would be a steady stream out the outtake vent, but there would be a lot, it'd be very difficult for it to do it.
Yep.
All right. I think I got some of the big pieces all taken care of.
I got us sidetracked again.
Yeah, we always do. It's okay. It's good conversation, and to be honest with you, it doesn't matter as long as we're all having fun. And I've been ignoring all these conversations going on here, guys. Sorry about that. Been putting the comments up, but not answering them. Pyro fuses for rapid shutdown.
It's not a bad thought.
Yeah. That's kind of like my thought. I was thinking I would like to have something where I could shut mine down remotely, maybe, Actually, I think we covered everything. Okay, so recommendations for people. This is the only section really I have left, and I got a couple of recommendations for people to think about. Obviously, as The start of that is make a real list of critical loads. Determine what you really, really need versus what is a nice to have. And not because you don't want to build to power all of it, but because nothing ever goes as planned and you need to be able to know how you're going to turn off the things you don't need when it don't go as planned. And what I mean by that is the hurricane hits and your batteries are at 40% instead of 100%. Now what do you do?
Yeah.
And feel free, Mike, just to cut in. I'm just going to keep mentioning them. But if you have something to say, please say it. Don't let me talk
one
over you.
thing, and we kind of mentioned this before. If your plan isn't documented, it's not a plan. And if you haven't run through the plan, then it's definitely not a plan. It should be, you should have it documented what to do so your wife can do it, or spouse or what have you. And then you've got to test that plan. So if your test is a hurricane is coming and you have a generator, okay, we'll fire up that generator. Does it start? You should be testing it every month anyway. What does it power? What doesn't it power? And is that okay? If it's your solar system, your critical loads, can you power all your critical loads, or do you have it connected to a critical load panel and now that you tested it, oh shoot, I can turn this on, but not that. And I wanted to have both of these on at the same time. Kind of understanding what it can do and what it can't do. And then maintenance. What I believe everyone should do with a solar setup is once a month, look at your panels, look at the mounts, look at your combiner boxes, make sure you don't have any bugs in there that are having families. That will short everything
or
out.
lizards in my case.
Yeah.
I walked out earlier today and a hatching of little baby lizards came out. I had like 100 little lizards about this big running around the shed today. I mean, they're everywhere. I've never seen so many.
Oh yeah, I remember all the lizards in Florida.
Yeah. All right. So in addition to that, I would say measure your actual power usage and test to make sure that your fridge and your refrigerator run times are what you think they should be. Those are good things to suggest.
One other thing, make sure that you have an alternate source of heat or air conditioning. And what I mean by that is, so the power goes out, you have a critical loads panel, AC isn't on that critical loads panel because, the inverter can't handle it or you don't have enough, whatever that it might be. Well, get a window AC. Medea makes these cheap window ACs for about $300, and I have 3 of them. I actually use those as primary and my HVAC as secondary. But if the power's out for a week, having 120 volt AC that's cooling the main room of your house, living room or whatever that it might be, then you have a room that everybody can stay in. And they talk about whenever that you're prepping for a storm, if you can't do everything, well, have one safe room that everybody can stay in, and you've got enough power to run or whatever that it might be. So think about that. It could be a solar powered fan to where you have a solar panel, and I've seen these on Amazon. One company asked me to review some of their stuff, and they had a solar power fan with a built-in battery. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea, especially if you have a power outage. You got a fan instantly.
Yeah, some of those swamp coolers can make the difference in making things completely uncomfortable, and all they are is taking some water and evaporating it and drop the temperature considerably. I mean, they make a huge difference in the way you feel, even if they don't technically make it a whole lot warmer or cooler.
Have a single space heater. It's the middle of winter. The power goes out. Okay, you can heat one room. Everybody sleeps in that one room and they're somewhat comfortable. Have that zone heating and cooling that I had mentioned. So those types of things are good as well.
The big one is to get extension cords and adapters and have them before the storm starts. When the storm's announced, for anybody who lives in a hurricane area or a tornado area or anything like that, Home Depot's emptied. They're not going to be there. You're not going to be able to get them. And keep in mind, extension cords, adapters like that are temporary solutions. Please do not run them all the time like that. So find the right ones, the right size while you have the opportunity to find them, and don't wait until it's too late. Build the one thing that I've found is a really good suggestion is that I've call what I have like, and I think I don't know that we've said it tonight, but I call it almost my super critical items, my refrigerator and my medicine. And I have like a separate backup system that I use, a small solar system that I could pull out that's just for those. Take it to conventions and show it to people all the time and sell plans for it and everything. But that I think is really critical. You have the system for your whole house or you have the system for that, but it never fails if something goes wrong. You get a fuse that goes out or an adapter that doesn't work or a breaker that pops and won't unset or whatever. Have a critical, serious, really good backup to your backup plan. Anything else?
Trying to think of anything else. I think we've beaten the horse dead at this point.
Yeah, the rest of these are all part of things that that we've all talked about before. Test the generator before you need it. Have a safety transfer plan in place. Don't just start flipping things on and plugging them into your house. And do not wait until the week of the storm. With a hurricane, you can wait till the week of the storm. With a lot of these disasters, you can't wait at all. Don't wait till it happens. It's too late. So, all right. Well, I think this is our longest show yet. It was a lot of good fun, though.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about bit mining. We talked about natural disasters. We talked about fish tanks. We talked about, what else did we talk about? I know that wasn't it. We talked about fire suppression. We talked about generators. We talked about the lawsuit, Battleborn trouble we're going to end up getting in. I've got a new test for my 12-volt batteries. I'm going to call it my Battleborn test. I'm going to run them all at 50 amps discharge 3 times in a row, and if they pass, I'm going to call it Battleborn test passed. Think I'll get sued?
I'm very careful with that stuff these days. The company is running out of cash. Their burn rate is pretty interesting, and I kind of look at them as like this. You go bow hunting, and you're shooting bears, and it's critically injured, but it's still close enough to charge you and get you. You got to be careful.
Yeah.
So,
a bear is still a bear.
So even though the company is having what I believe, what people have said, financial issues, and they have the class action and all this other stuff going on, doesn't mean that they can't go after more people. So
I didn't say it.
Yep. So I stay away from it.
All right. Well, I hate to call it ends to this one. This has been a fun one, and I'm sure we could find something else to talk about, but we will save it for next time. Anything, Mike, you want to talk about? I am going to put the link back up to your solar form.
So I would say there's a lot of good things that's going on there, and I definitely welcome everyone to join. There's a section in there to where you can share your system. So you can post in there, show your system for everyone else, or you could just jump in the general chat and, talk about solar panels or wind turbines or anything else. And a lot of good people in there already.
All right. And this week, I have hit 23,936 subscribers. I want to thank every
Wow.
single one of you. I'm just amazed that the growth this last week has been fantastic. I really, really am looking forward to hitting 25,000. I don't know why. I know it's just a number, but it's an amazing number. And thank you so much to everybody who's to the members, to the subscribers, to everyone. To Mike, I appreciate you too. You've been
I
It's been a
appreciate
lot of
you
fun.
having me on.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. We're gonna have to. Everyone should go and go to Joe's channel, find one of his things, tell him how awesome, tell his wife how awesome she is, and then say, Joe, where were you? We were waiting for you to come on the show and talk about disaster recovery. What happened? We'll give him a hard time. I don't probably know him well enough to do that, but let's do it anyway. It'll be fun. And be fun, right?
I think so. We can quiz him about his generator. That thing's got to put out some serious power.
What's that?
That generator that he has, that big old diesel,
Oh yeah, I'm. It's got to be a diesel. I mean, that
it's
thing is
got to be at the
huge.
size of it. Yeah.
It is just. It's one of those. I think it's one of those old military ones. I don't remember.
Yeah, it's a tow behind one. Yeah, it's. I mean, if it's big green and has its own wheels to pull behind a vehicle, that's yeah.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear
I can
me?
hear you. Okay. Yes.
All right. I had to switch to a different mic. I don't know if
Ah, okay. I
my
thought it was on my
microphone
end, so
died.
that's why I was rejoining.
So my mic probably doesn't sound near as good as it did, but it's functioning at least. Okay.
Sounds
I
good.
thought I had hung up on you. Try switching to this. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
All right. So
Looks like we're still live as well. Yeah.
this is this is what it looks
Where's
like.
the generator? I thought it had wheels.
It is diesel.
There's the, but I thought it had wheels to it. I thought it was a big green one.
He said 5 kilowatts, but it says 12 here on the screen. At least I think it does. Let's see if I can get that to play again. Oh, it is 5 kilowatt generator and a 12 kilowatt inverter. Oh, I see. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So that big old giant thing is 5 kilowatts now. The only good side is it is diesel. That's kind of, that thing is probably a beast.
Got to be heavy.
And that would run most of a charge inverter.
Yeah.
Wonder how efficient it is with gas though, or with diesel. I bet it's not very efficient. Anyway. All right then. Well, I guess we're done for the night. Thanks
Thanks again,
everybody.
Thanks,
For
everyone.
coming, Mike. I appreciate it.